Chapter 6:21. Tianyang is my East Sea Dragon Palace's benefactor. Anyone who touches Tianyang will be killed. Long Taiji roared. Veins popped out on his face, and a faint dragon fire burned on his body. Obviously, Long Taiji was truly enraged at this moment. Hearing this, Tang Ba's face was filled with shock. Who was Long Taiji? He was the current East Sea Dragon Palace's crown prince, a 7th-level sea of Soul Realm warrior. The Dragon Crown Prince who was almost certain to become a sky-reaching realm warrior. Who knew how many people wanted to have a relationship with such a person, but all of them were treated coldly. What was the result? This Tianyang, who was not even 20 years old and came from a small sect, made Long Taiji say such words? What was going on? What? Still not leaving? Do you really want me to kill you? Long Taiji looked at Tang Ba with a gloomy face. A dragon power condensed in his hand. It seemed that if Tang Ba dared to say no, the dragon power would rush out and kill Tang Ba. Seeing Long Taiji's extremely ugly face, how could Tang Ba dare to say no? After giving Tianyang a resentful look, he hurriedly flew away. That was the Dragon Crown Prince, Long Taiji. Although he had some status in the Ninth Heaven Palace, compared to the Dragon Crown Prince of the EC Dragon Palace, he was much weaker. This guy might not let this go. Ling Yuhan looked at Tang Ba's departing figure and said. Hearing this, Long Taiji smiled indifferently. Let's not talk about other things. In the earthly emperor small world, this guy won't dare to do anything. Right, Tianyang? Brother Tianyang, can I have a word with you? Long Taiji said. Hearing this, Tianyang, who was wondering who this Long Taiji was, nodded and followed. A group of 3, no, 4 people came to an open space. When Tianyang saw the awkward smile on Ao Ling's face, he understood everything. No wonder Long Taiji would spare no effort to help him. There was a high chance that this fellow had sold him out. Lord Sword Emperor, I'm sorry, Ao Ling said. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan did not have much of a reaction. Seeing that Ao Ling's expression was only one of awkwardness due to his misdeed being exposed, and Tianyang's calm expression, Long Taiji could not help but believe him a little. After all, Ao Ling, Ao Ling. Ao Ling. LN body, refining realms power. S. This ability wasn't something an ordinary person. Long Taiji was even more convinced now that he saw Tianyang slaughtering everyone. He didn't even care about Tang Ba. He looked at Tianyang with a fervent gaze. All right, if you have something to say, just say it. The great Dragon Crown Prince shouldn't be so free. Tianyang said. Long Taiji nodded and cut to the chase. Tianyang, Lord Sword Emperor, Ao Ling has already said that you are the Tianji Sword Emperor from 10,000 years ago. However, I still don't quite believe it. I wonder if Lord Sword Emperor can show me some of the techniques that belong to Lord Sword Emperor. Otherwise, I won't be able to continue. Long Taiji said. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly and wasn't angry. After all, a great emperor who had died in the lightning tribulation 10,000 years ago was now alive and well in front of him. Even with Ao Ling's oath, Long Taiji didn't dare to believe it. After all, this was too shocking. Don't worry. Regardless of whether it's true or not, I won't spread it or do anything. If it's true, then I will personally apologize to you and owe you a favor. Long Taiji said respectfully. Tianyang smiled faintly. There's no need for that. If a dead person suddenly came back to life, even I would be shocked. It's a little troublesome to open the spiritual mark of the Red Dragon tribe again. I wonder if I can ask you a question? Tianyang smiled. Long Taiji was stunned. Although he didn't know what this had to do with confirming his identity, he still nodded. Go ahead. The Dragon King Divine Fist of the East Sea Dragon Palace is a heaven lower class martial technique. Has the Dragon King Divine Fist been leaked? Tianyang chuckled. Long Taiji's expression changed when he heard that. After 10,000 years, the martial Tao had declined. Even for some large forces, a peerless Earth-class martial technique was the limit. A half-step heaven-class martial technique was something that only a first-rate force could take out. As for heaven-class martial techniques, they were legends among legends. They were almost lost. Only those martial Tao Holy Lands and overlords like the EC Dragon Palace could have them. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to find them even if you were beaten to death. What do you mean by that? Long Taiji's face turned serious. Even though he was the Dragon Prince of the East Sea Dragon Palace, he didn't dare to act rashly when it came to heaven-class martial techniques. After all, a heaven-class martial technique was the pillar and inheritance of a martial Dao Holy Land. I'm just asking to see if I can prove it. Of course, if you can't remember clearly, I have other ways. Tianyang smiled. Long Taiji hesitated for a moment and shook his head. No. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Beside him, Ling Yuhan's expression changed as well. After all, Tianyang had used the Dragon King's divine fist many times. He had already used it when he was in the Northern Wilderness secret territory. He had used it for 2 years. Could it be that he had secretly learned it from the East Sea Dragon Palace? Oh, Tianyang's expression didn't change, and he chuckled lightly. Although the Eastern Sea's old dragon sage from 10,000 years ago was a little shameless, he probably wouldn't go so far as to not include the friendly exchanges between heavenly completion stage experts in the history books. With the Dragon Clan's good habit of collecting valuable things, the history books of the East Sea Dragon Palace must have been preserved perfectly. No. Let me think. Hearing Tianyang smile, Long Taiji shook his head again. Then his eyes widened. 10,000 years ago, during an exchange with the Tianji Sword Emperor, Lord Dragon Sage used the Dragon King Fist to exchange for some of the Tianji Sword Emperor's martial techniques. This is also the first and only time a heaven-class martial technique has been leaked since the East Sea Dragon Palace was established. Long Taiji was shocked. Tianyang smiled and stood up. The Tianji Sword Emperor didn't have any children. That is to say, the human who can use the Dragon King Fist. It must be me. Tianyang smiled. In the next moment, the divine dragon's body exploded. A terrifying dragon's aura shocked the entire place. Ling Yuhan's face didn't change, but the nine-tailed moon fox bloodline in her body was activated. Her body bent under the pressure of the dragon's aura, and her face was filled with disbelief. Long Taiji's face changed when he sensed the dragon's aura. This is, watch carefully, Dragon King Fist, 10,000 dragons slaughtering gods. Tianyang punched out. Countless giant dragons roared and charged out. In front of Long Taiji's dumbfounded eyes, countless giant dragons soared above the 9 heavens like the real dragon race. Then, the dragons roared and charged toward a mountain peak 10,000 miles away. Boom! The majestic mountain peak was instantly shattered into pieces by Tianyang's punch. Even from 10,000 miles away, Long Taiji could clearly see the mountain peak that was shattered by the punch. Chapter 622. Long Taiji was completely convinced when he saw the extremely pure divine dragon force, which was even more tyrannical and rich than Long Taiji himself. He had no choice but to be convinced. The Dragon King Fist was one thing, but this divine dragon force. Was the person in front of him the Tianji Sword Emperor and not the ancient Dragon Emperor? As the Dragon Prince of the East Sea Dragon Palace, the purity of his bloodline had already reached a terrifying level. It might not be the best in history, but it was not far from it. In the past 5,000 years, no dragon could compare with Long Taiji in terms of bloodline purity. The stronger the bloodline purity, the stronger the dragon force. However, the dragon force that had always been arrogant and unparalleled in the world had now suffered an invisible setback in front of Tianyang. This divine dragon force, this Dragon King Fist. Big brother, you are the Dragon Prince. Looking at Long Taiji, who was about to cry, A.O. Ling also had a strange expression on his face. 2 years ago, when he saw Tianyang, Tianyang was only a body refinement realm cultivator with nothing. If not for his identity as the Tianji Sword Emperor, A.O. Ling would not even look at him. However, it had only been 2 years. In 2 years, he had gone from a body refinement realm cultivator to a sea of soul realm expert. Moreover, he was someone who could instantly kill the Western region Buddhist sects Guangming, crush the human race's heavens Pride Hongwei, and intimidate the Dragon Palace's Prince Long Taiji. This should be enough, right? Tianyang chuckled. Previously, when he fought with Hong Wei, the latter had admitted defeat before he could fully unleash the Dragon King fist, causing Tianyang to feel very uncomfortable. Now that he had the chance, he naturally unleashed it. The power was not bad. Enough, Long Taiji said with a sobbing tone. The Tianji Sword Emperor was a genius? If someone said this to Long Taiji at this moment, Long Taiji would definitely slap them without a second word. Genius your grandpa. This was clearly a monster. Monster? Which human could use the Dragon King's divine fist well and have the power of a divine dragon? On the other hand, Ling Yuhan and Ao Ling, who were at the side, saw everything clearly. They were speechless. Master Sir's formless act of posturing had instantly dealt a heavy blow to Long Taiji. In order to prevent Long Taiji from vomiting blood, Ao Ling came out to save the situation in time. Lord Sword Emperor, I'm sorry. Brother Long is just being cautious. I hope Lord Sword Emperor doesn't mind. Ao Ling smiled. Hearing this, Tianyang waved his hand. I'm not that narrow-minded. However, since you all are helping me, there must be something that you need my help with, right? Hearing this, Ao Ling straightforwardly nodded. However, there was some awkwardness between his brows. Previously, he thought that Tianyang was threatened by Tang Ba and was going to be beaten up. But now, it was clear that he was the one who had ruined Tang Ba's plans. With such strength, even the holy maiden of a Nine Heavens palace who was hailed as a peerless genius would find it hard to stand shoulder to shoulder with her. How could a mere Tang Ba compare? There are some things that I hope Lord Sword Emperor can help with. This is not the place to talk. Can we go somewhere else? Ao Ling said. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded. Without waiting for Ao Ling to move, he summoned the Tianyuan Tower. Looking at the peak of the middle-grade spiritual weapon, Ao Ling, who was about to fly up to find a place, was dumbfounded. You mean to say that your East Sea Dragon Palace was attacked by an unknown sword chi? Tianyang said. Hearing this, Long Taiji nodded. He was a little embarrassed. It's not that our East Sea Dragon Palace doesn't have any Ascension Realm experts who are good at swordsmanship. However, all of them are helpless against the mysterious sword chi. However, looking at the direction, it flew from the eastern part of the central region. Then, it came here and happened to come across the martial arts conference. Long Taiji said, it was true that disaster came from the sky while one was at home. They were having fun in the sea when a sword chi suddenly flew from the west and chopped up their home. Although it didn't cause any casualties, it wasn't a big deal. As long as the sword chi stayed in the East Sea Dragon Palace, the East Sea Dragon Palace wouldn't be able to sleep peacefully. Hearing the news about Tianyang from Ao Ling, Long Taiji naturally rushed over in a hurry. When he saw Tang Ba bullying people, he immediately attacked him in anger. The eastern part of the central region? Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. His expression became a little strange. When exactly 2 or 3 months ago, it said that it was the end of the Great Void Mystery Land. Oh yes, on that day, Lord Sword Emperor killed everyone and killed Venerable Ironbone. When the news spread to the East Sea Dragon Palace, it caused a great commotion. However, after your glorious feat, the sword chi came, so we didn't have the mood to discuss it. Long Taiji praised. Hearing this, Yu Jianxian, who was half recovered, was dumbfounded. Tianyang and Ling Yuhan's smiles suddenly froze on the spot. At the same time as when he released the power of Shuntian Wuzuan and tyrannized Venerable Ironbone's group, a sword chi that even a heaven-reaching realm expert couldn't resolve was either an emperor or Wuzun. However, how could an emperor's sword chi be so easy to encounter? As for Wuzun's sword chi, Tianyang still had 2 in his mind. If there was no accident, the sword chi that destroyed the East Sea Dragon Palace was released by Tianyang. Therefore, this time I want to ask Lord Sword Emperor to help our East Sea Dragon Palace deal with that sword chi. Lord Sword Emperor, please help us. Long Taiji clasped his hands together and bent down. His posture was as sincere as it could be. It would be better if he didn't do this, but once he did, Tianyang couldn't sit still. He jumped up as if his butt was on fire. No, Question mark. Long Taiji was dumbfounded. Cough cough. Tianyang also felt that his behavior was a little overboard, but if he said it out loud, these two dragons might immediately draw their swords and fight for 300 rounds. After thinking for a while, Tianyang slowly opened his mouth. The expression on his face naturally became awe-inspiring. Although I, the Tianji Sword Emperor, am not a good person, your Long Sheng gave me the Dragon King Divine Fist after all. I also received some help from Ao Ling. If the East Sea Dragon Palace is in trouble, I will naturally help. Therefore, after the martial arts conference ends, arrange a time for me to take a look. If I have time, I will definitely go. Tianyang's voice was firm and resolute. That awe-inspiring righteousness immediately stunned Ao Ling and Long Taiji. Long Taiji was moved. In this world, there are too few people like Lord Sword Emperor. Don't worry, my East Sea Dragon Palace will definitely not let you do it for free. I will definitely report to my father and ask him to pay some treasures to Lord Sword Emperor. Long Taiji was extremely excited. Ling Yuan, who was beside him, secretly circulated her true yuan to control the muscles on her face. No, I can't laugh. As for Yu Jianshun, who was confused from the beginning to the end, he felt that something was wrong. When did Tianyang, who didn't wake up early without benefits, become so enthusiastic about helping others? Chapter 6:23. In the end, Tianyang couldn't hide it from the puzzled Yu Jianshun. When he heard the truth, Yu Jianshun laughed on the spot. If Tianyang hadn't dragged him out, Long Taiji and Ao Ling would have known about it. Laughing while transmitting his voice, this guy was indeed unreliable. Tianyang was unhappy. At this time, Long Taiji suddenly said, I wonder what Sword Emperor plans to do next. The earthly Emperor's small world is constantly changing. There are reasons why we haven't immediately taken action to obtain a ranking on the individual ranking. I wonder if Sword Emperor is interested? Long Taiji smiled. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and understood. He had promised to help the East Sea Dragon Palace. Whether he could do it or not, the East Sea Dragon Palace owed him a favor. Now that Long Taiji had thrown this matter to Tianyang, it was obvious that he was returning the favor. I'd like to hear the details. Tianyang smiled. Hearing this, Long Taiji nodded and began to explain. The earthly emperor small world wasn't a small world with many sects in ancient times. It was very ordinary. This can be seen from the density of the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. However, there's only one reason why the earthly emperor small world was chosen as the venue for the martial arts conference and is valued by the Scarlet Flame sect, a martial arts holy land. Long Taiji said. Hearing this, Yu Jianshun, who had been thrown out by Tianyang, hurriedly flew over on his flying sword. What's the reason? The earthly emperor small world was a battlefield in ancient times. It was the battlefield of the human race and the demon race. No, it was the battlefield of the sky continent's 10,000 races and the demon race. Since it was a battlefield, there would be many ruins left. Moreover, there are many dangers here. Even 10,000 years ago, before the civilization was destroyed, there were people who came to explore. There was no lack of heaven-reaching realm experts among them. Long Taiji said. Hearing this, Tianyang's face suddenly became serious. Ancient battlefield? Countless opportunities? Even heaven-reaching experts would come to explore? Tianyang's face suddenly became serious when he thought of the heaven-cleaving sword art that he had obtained before. Although he was not familiar with sanguinati, he knew that he was a madman who killed to prove his Tao. The heaven-slashing sword art was a sword art that he had created with his life's effort, so it was impossible for him to abandon it. In other words, sanguinati had died in this earthly emperor's small world. Tianyang's face darkened when he thought of the Berserk Devil Clan's Devil King Enlai, who was hiding in the ancient Dragon Emperor's body. It was not impossible. Since it is a battlefield, there will naturally be endless opportunities. The blood-colored scroll that Lord Sword Overlord obtained is one of them. The mystic realm that we found is another. Long Taiji chuckled. Upon hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Mystic realm? That's right. It's a mystery realm. It's the tomb of an ancient expert who is at least at LV3 of the heaven-reaching realm. However, it's not only discovered by the East Sea Dragon Palace. Therefore, if Lord Sword Overlord has nothing else to do, can you do me a favor? Long Taiji asked. Upon hearing this, Tianyang's mind spun rapidly. It was not impossible for him to help, but the tomb of a LV3 heaven-reaching realm was not very attractive to him. However, when he connected this to the explosive news of an ancient battlefield and the suspected death of Sanguinati, Tianyang's expression turned grave. It would be good if he could obtain some information from the tomb. Sure, Tianyang nodded. However, I prefer to act freely. Of course, we won't restrict even Brother Ao Ling. It's just that there will be some trouble at the beginning. Long Taiji smiled. There are many people who have their eyes on this tomb. In today's world, a LV3 heaven-reaching realm expert is the ruler of a holy land of martial arts. I'm worried that the Scarlet Flame sect, Ninth Heaven Palace, Western Region Buddhist sect, and other holy lands of martial arts will also have people fighting for it. Long Taiji said. Upon hearing this, Tianyang smiled indifferently. I have enemies in the Scarlet Flame sect. I've already offended Ninth Heaven Palace. I've already killed 2 Buddhists of the Western region. If even you aren't afraid, what is there for me to be afraid of? Tianyang chuckled. Upon hearing this, Long Taiji was overjoyed. Thank you, Lord Sword Overlord, for your help. Countless miles away, a ray of light flashed past. A heavily armored man covered the blood in his mouth and forced himself not to spit it out. Only when he landed on the ground did he spit it out. His face was extremely pale. Damn you, Long Taiji. I've already given in, but you still hurt me. Also, if it weren't for Tianyang, Tang Ba, wouldn't be in such a situation. Tang Ba roared. Previously, Long Taiji didn't just block Tang Ba's attack. A hidden dragon force flowed into Tang Ba's body when he retracted his hand. It only erupted when Tang Ba left. The moment it erupted, Tang Ba immediately suffered injuries that were not light. Oof. What Long Taiji? What Tianyang? How can these people be a match for my Ninth Heaven Palace? News from the Saintess? She found the tomb of a Third Heaven Ascension realm expert. Tang Ba wanted to continue cursing, but before he could finish his sentence, his communication token vibrated rapidly. When he took it out to take a look, Tang Ba's heart trembled. The tomb of a Third Heaven Ascension realm expert. That was one of the few experts in their 9 Heavens Palace that could be counted on one's fingers. Usually, other than the Saintess, no one else would be able to see such an expert. Now, there was a tomb waiting for him to discover it. Ha! The heavens are helping me. Wait until I obtain the opportunity in the tomb. Tianyang, Long Taiji, wait for your deaths. Ha! Fa Ming was killed. Guang Ming was killed as well. Outside a massive barrier, a bald man in a kasaya was looking at the soul lamp in his hand with an extremely strained expression. Of the 7 soul lamps, 3 had already been extinguished. 2 of them had been extinguished not long ago. My Western Region Buddhist sect hasn't made a move for many years. The people of Skycloud Continent really don't know that Buddhism is boundless. If this Third Heaven Ascension realm expert's tomb wasn't so important, I would definitely let them experience the power of the glaring guardian deity. The bald man said coldly. Then, looking at the barrier in front of him, he swung the staff in his hand. Boom! The barrier shook a few times, but it wasn't damaged at all. Damn it! Tianyang and the others didn't know about the actions of the other holy lands. If they did, they wouldn't have cared. At this moment, they had already followed the route provided by Long Taiji and arrived at the center of a huge mountain range. In the majestic mountain range, dragon veins converged. At the center of the convergence, a majestic tomb appeared in their line of sight. That's the Third Heaven Ascension realm expert's tomb I mentioned. Chapter 624. Whoosh! A sharp sound pierced through the air, and in the next moment, a huge pagoda appeared beside the barrier. Boom! Billowing waves of air exploded, and a powerful aura was released, instantly suppressing the entire area. Seeing this, Tang Ba, who had just arrived, and Western Region Buddhist Siyu, who had been waiting here for a long time, changed their expressions. From the aura of the heavenly pagoda, they could already tell that this huge pagoda was a mid-grade spiritual weapon. A mid-grade spiritual weapon, and such a huge pagoda at that, would definitely be expensive, and its owner's status and strength would definitely not be weak either. Now, they were still blocked outside the barrier, and a strong opponent had already arrived. This was not good news for the two of them. Who's inside? Tang Ba put on a brave front, his gaze occasionally glancing to the side. Earlier, the saint had sent a message saying that she had arrived, but now, he did not see her. If no one from Nine Heavens Palace had arrived, didn't that mean that he was the only one here? If there were more than 3 people in this huge pagoda, he was afraid that he would die here. After all, the temptation of the tomb of a Heaven Ascension Stage Level 3 expert was not something that anyone could resist. This Dragon Crown Prince, what's wrong? Are you looking for a beating again? At this moment, the huge pagoda's door opened, and Long Taiji, dressed in a golden robe, looked at Tang Ba with indifference as he spoke indifferently. Although he didn't say it clearly, the disdain in his tone and demeanor almost made Tang Ba's head explode. A surge of hot blood rushed to his heart. He, Tang Ba, had always lived like a prince since he was young. When had he ever been looked down upon like this? However, the person who looked down on him was Long Taiji, who was even stronger than him and had lived like a prince, so Tang Ba could only accept it. However, he had met Long Taiji not long ago, and now that Long Taiji had appeared here, it meant that, "That's right, I'm here too." Tianyang smiled. Seeing this, Tang Ba's expression instantly became extremely gloomy. It was Tianyang. If it weren't for Tianyang, he wouldn't have been suppressed by Long Taiji in front of everyone. He did not dare to provoke Long Taiji, but Tianyang was different. If Tianyang had obediently hid under Long Taiji's protection, then Tang Ba wouldn't have been able to do anything to him. However, this was the tomb of a 3rd-level Heaven Ascension Stage expert. In the tomb, opportunities and dangers coexisted. Long Taiji could protect Tianyang for a while, but could he protect Tianyang forever? At that time, once Tianyang left Long Taiji's protection, wouldn't he be able to do whatever he wanted? Tang Ba thought wildly in his heart. Beside him, Tianyang had a panoramic view of Tang Ba's performance. It had to be said that Tang Ba's strength was passable, but his EQ was too poor. If his IQ was poor, he could make up for it with his EQ. In the end, this fellow's EQ and IQ were both trash. His thoughts were written all over his face. As if afraid that Tianyang wouldn't know, he would smile from time to time. Tianyang was speechless at this. Naturally, he could tell what Tang Ba was thinking, but there was no way to deal with it. If Long Taiji hadn't interfered, Tang Ba would have died under his sword long ago. Why would he have to go through so much trouble? Therefore, Tianyang wouldn't do anything to Tang Ba in this tomb as long as he behaved himself. If Tang Ba played some tricks, a blood-red murderous intent flashed in Tianyang's eyes. This way, the sky-severing sword art he'd just obtained could be put to good use. TSK, Long Taiji, you're quite fast. At that moment, a cold laugh sounded from the sky. Hearing that, Long Taiji sneered, "You're quite thick-skinned. Even though you've been defeated, you still dare to appear before me. Even if you don't feel embarrassed, I feel embarrassed for the Scarlet Flame sect." Long Taiji laughed. Hearing this, the person's face darkened. "You've only lost by 1 move, and you're still so arrogant. Humph. Then we'll see in the tomb," that person said coldly. After that, he landed and led the group to the side of the barrier. He glanced at Tianyang and the rest, but didn't pay much attention to them. Apart from Long Taiji, these people were unfamiliar. They might just be followers who were here to be bystanders. As a prodigy of the Scarlet Flame sect, he naturally wouldn't care about such insignificant people. That's someone from the Scarlet Flame sect. This guy who's still so arrogant despite being defeated is the strongest prodigy of the Scarlet Flame sect. Scarlet Flame sect Huolingri. Long Taiji transmitted his voice. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Huolingri? There weren't many people with the surname Hua. Huolingri's surname wasn't originally Hua. However, on the day he was born, a spiritual fire fell from the sky and coincidentally landed in the territory of the Scarlet Flame sect. Huolingri had a strong talent for flames. When he was 15 years old, he had a breakthrough in his cultivation and advanced to the origin transformation realm. He controlled that spiritual fire and changed his surname to Hua. Long Taiji said. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Was there such a rare occurrence? However, it wasn't impossible for a spiritual fire to fall from the sky. Tianyang knew of a few spiritual fires that were born in the sky. However, on the day he was born, he was still in the Scarlet Flame sect and had a strong talent for flames. This had a lot to do with it. However, Tianyang didn't care. At this moment, he was looking with interest at Nie Fengyun, who was at the back of the Scarlet Flame sect's group. At this moment, Nie Fengyun felt Tianyang's gaze and hurriedly avoided it. He was no longer as arrogant and despotic as he was in the Great Void Mystery Realm. Unfortunately, no matter what Nie Fengyun did, Tianyang wouldn't let him go. Back in the Great Void Mystery Realm, Tianyang didn't react to what happened in the earthly Imperial City. However, it didn't mean that he would forget about it. Tianyang wasn't someone who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance, but he would never repay evil with good. Oh my, so there are so many people here. At this moment, a clear voice came from the other side. A group of 4 people walked over from not far away. They were either wearing heavy armor or long robes. All of them were around the 6th level of the Sea of Soul realm, especially the person in the lead. She wore a fiery red short skirt, revealing her fair and beautiful thighs. Looking at her made one's lower abdomen burn. Her appearance was also devastatingly beautiful. At first glance, she was actually on par with Ling Yuhan. She looked to be around 20 years old, but she exuded the terrifying aura of the 7th level of the Sea of Soul realm. Moreover, there was an insignia on their chests. It was exactly the same as Tang Ba's. Martial Dao Holy Land, 9th Heaven Palace, Eastern Sea Dragon Palace, Western Region Buddhist Sect, Scarlet Flame Sect, and 9th Heaven Palace. The 4 martial Dao Holy Land forces were all here. Seeing this, Tang Ba hurried over. Saintess, you're finally here. The girl called Saintess nodded. Then, she glanced at the crowd. Her gaze paused on Ling Yuhan for a moment. She had gotten some information from Tang Ba's communication token. With the arrival of the last group of people, the entire area outside the tomb of the 3rd level Ascension Realm Expert quieted down. Eastern Sea Dragon Palace, Western Region Buddhist Sect, Scarlet Flame Sect, 9th Heaven Palace. The 4 martial Dao Holy Lands and Tianyang's group of 3 were all gathered here. Undercurrents surged. The various forces glanced at the crowd. Then, they slowly revealed their auras. Long Taiji, Huolingri, Tanyu, and the Saintess of 9th Heaven Palace were no exception. Chapter 6:25. Powerful auras were released one after another. Everyone had a faint smile on their faces as they began to clash with each other in this invisible aura. The disciples of the martial arts holy ground were also human beings. They needed more benefits, and these benefits were determined by their strength. Puff, puff, bang. There was a burst of explosion in the air. The weak air couldn't stop the fight at all. In a short while, the whole space trembled slightly. The Dragon Crown Prince is indeed the Dragon Crown Prince. This kind of vigorous aura is rarely seen in the world. Huolingri said with a smile. Hearing this, Long Taiji didn't say anything. Looking at Huolingri's serious face, Long Taiji's face froze. Huolingri was going to fight for real. Peak rank 4 spiritual fire, green lotus fire. Huolingri shouted angrily. A stream of green flame appeared around him. Suddenly, the surrounding air became extremely hot. In the fight of auras, the fragile balance was broken in an instant. Huolingri, who had released the green lotus fire, looked at the people in front of him arrogantly. In front of the power of the spiritual fire, their auras would be evaporated completely. Only you have the spiritual fire? At this moment, the Saintess of the 9 Heavens Palace chuckled. A stream of red flame appeared on her body. Tianyang had seen this flame before. It was the Nine Heavens fire seed flame that Tangba had used before. However, the flame that appeared on the saintess of the Nine Heavens palace was not the seed flame. It was the real Nine Heavens fire. As soon as the Nine Heavens fire seed flame appeared, the arrogant green lotus fire was instantly suppressed. There were differences between people, and so were flames. In front of the rank 5 spiritual fire, Nine Heavens fire, the peak rank 4 green lotus fire was nothing. The Buddha says, "Deliver all living beings from torment." At this moment, the bald man also chuckled. He put his palms together, and the long string of prayer beads on his wrist started to roll rapidly. The next moment, a dazzling Buddha's light appeared behind Xiao Yu's head. The light illuminated everything. For a moment, Hua Lingri and the saintess of the Nine Heavens Palace were suppressed. At this moment, Long Taiji, who hadn't used any means, was in a passive position. Those geniuses are all fighting with their auras right now, so it's impossible for them to notice me. In other words, Tang Ba's eyes narrowed as he looked at the people in the midst of the battle. His heart trembled slightly as his expression turned ferocious. Long Taiji was currently in the midst of a battle and definitely couldn't make a move. Once he made a move, he would break the rules, and at that time, he would definitely gain nothing from the tomb of a third-level heavenly completion realm expert. In other words, aside from Yu Jianshun, there was no one else who could threaten Tianyang. It's not a good time to attack, but I can crush you with my aura alone. Tang Ba roared ferociously in his heart. In the next moment, peak 6th level sea of Soul Realm Zhan Yuan burst out, and a majestic aura crushed towards Tianyang. Those 4 people obviously noticed Tang Ba's actions, but other than Long Taiji, the others did not have any reaction. Especially the Nine Heavens Palace's holy maiden, who even giggled a few times, making Long Taiji furious. Regardless of Tianyang's strength, Tianyang was someone that Long Taiji had brought over. The Nine Heavens Palace's people didn't give him any face and directly attacked Tianyang. This was equivalent to slapping his face. You really think that if I don't make a move, it's because this crown prince can't do it? Long Zhan, idiot! Long Taiji coldly snorted, but before he could finish, a voice even colder than his rang out. In the next moment, a terrifying aura as sharp as a sword that could split the heavens erupted from Tianyang's body. For a moment, the 4 geniuses' faces changed as they looked at Tianyang in disbelief. However, this terrifying aura was only the beginning. 5th level spirit fire, Annihilation Heavenly Flame. The Annihilation Heavenly Flame, which had merged with the Annihilation Spiritual Fire and the Blue Heavenly Flame, was even more powerful than the Nine Heavens Flame. In addition to the Heavenly Sun's powerful soul energy, it caused the surrounding solar energy to gather and suppress the Nine Heavens Flame and the Green Lotus Flame. The Nine Heavens fire around the saintess of the Nine Heavens Palace and the Green Lotus fire around Hua Lingri were both shivering. They even leaned down slightly, as if they were bowing down to the Heavenly Sun's heavenly fire. How is this possible? The Holy Maiden's face was filled with shock. No one knew better than her how powerful the Nine Heavens Flame was. In this world, there was almost no spirit fire that could make the Nine Heavens Flame bow down to it. However, Tianyang's Annihilation Heavenly Flame had done it. Moreover, what made the Holy Maiden the most uncomfortable was that Tianyang didn't even look at her at this moment. His cold gaze was fixed on Tang Ba. If a tiger doesn't show its might, do you really think I'm a sick cat? Tianyang said indifferently. The aura on his body once again erupted. The extremely sharp aura was like a long sword, piercing through heaven and earth. Immediately, the auras of the Holy Maiden, Buddhist sex Tanyu, Scarlet Flame sex Hua Lingri, and Long Taiji vanished like smoke. Seeing this, apart from Long Taiji, the other 3 geniuses' faces changed greatly. Who on earth was this Tianyang? With just his aura, he could disperse their auras. Could it be that he was a half-step Heaven Ascension realm expert? However, Tianyang's fourth-level sea of soul realm aura couldn't be faked. For a moment, the three geniuses were in a state of confusion. At this moment, Tang Ba looked at Tianyang walking towards him. His face instantly paled, and he retreated a few steps, looking at Tianyang in disbelief. Tianyang, shouldn't he be a piece of trash that he could crush as he wished? In the so-called human ranking, only the fiend race's King Chi Yao could move them. But who was Tianyang? He actually dared to behave so atrociously in front of him. And the result? Tang Ba was first stopped by Long Taiji, and now he was being suppressed by Tianyang. His entire person was sullen, needless to say. At this moment, Tang Ba could only look at Tianyang in fear, afraid that Tianyang would make a move and erase him from this world. I'm from Nine Heaven Palace. If you kill me, Nine Heaven Palace won't let this go. The Holy Maiden won't sit idly by. Tang Ba roared, and his body moved closer to the Holy Maiden, as if only this Holy Maiden could protect him. However, when the Holy Maiden saw Tang Ba move closer, her expression became unsightly. This guy's clearly targeting you. Why are you moving closer? Trying to divert the trouble? Forced by the situation, the Holy Maiden had no choice but to stand out. Otherwise, the geniuses behind her would turn against her. This one, although you're strong, you're not a match for a martial Holy Land. How about this? Give me, Tang Fengling, some face. Just this once. After this, no matter what happens to Tang Ba, I won't care. The Holy Maiden of Nine Heaven Palace, Tang Fengling, said, her forehead covered in cold sweat. This was already the biggest concession she could make as the Holy Maiden of Nine Heaven Palace. You want to use Nine Heaven Palace to pressure me? At this moment, Tianyang smiled with interest and stepped closer to Tang Fengling. Tang Fengling's expression changed, but she still pretended to be tough and said, Nine Heaven Palace is a martial Holy Land after all. Offending Nine Heaven Palace isn't a good thing for you and the faction behind you. Before she finished speaking, Tang Fengling felt her chin being forcefully lifted up. Tianyang's soft white skin deformed slightly under Tianyang's hand, and he even felt some elasticity. As for Tang Fengling, she was completely dumbfounded. She looked at the young face, holding her chin in disbelief, and her face flushed red. She even forgot what she wanted to say. Ever since she was born, she had never been treated like this by a man of her age. But just as Tang Fengling was about to cry out, Tianyang's eyes caught her attention. Those eyes were clear and pure, like a lake. But deep within them, one could faintly see the indomitable spirit of an ancient god. Tang Fengling was stunned. At this time, Tianyang's indifferent voice sounded. I'll only say this once. I, Tianyang, will not be threatened by anyone. Nine Heaven Palace is the same. Chapter 626. After that, Tianyang put down his hand and waved his hand. A strong wind blew and threw Tang Fengling aside. Tianyang did this purely on a whim. Now, there was still Tang Ba to deal with. As for Tang Fengling, who was treated so rudely and ignored, she was completely dumbfounded. She could feel her cheeks quickly heating up. Just as she was about to turn around and scold Tianyang, Tianyang had already walked in front of Tang Ba. Tianyang was not very tall. Compared to Tang Ba, who was at least 5 meters tall, he was more than a head shorter. However, this much shorter height, when standing in front of Tang Ba, gave Tang Ba a terrifying feeling as if his life and death were no longer in his control. His face was deathly pale, and his legs were trembling like a sieve. His entire being was terrified to the extreme. He was scared. He was not even afraid of the threat of Joachim Palace. He dared to flirt with the Saintess and threw her aside after flirting with her. He also had the East Sea Dragon Palace as his backer. His own strength was also so terrifying. The combination of these factors caused Tang Ba to feel extremely terrified. This was an expression of extreme fear. Looking at Tang Ba in front of him, Tianyang smiled faintly. His expression was calm, and it was hard to tell whether he was happy or sad. Why weren't you scared when you were suppressing me and trying to steal my disciple? Tianyang smiled. However, this time, Tang Ba understood it. Tianyang's seemingly calm words hid boundless anger. If the flames of fury were to explode, it was enough to burn Tang Ba into ashes. At this time, the group of people around them were dumbfounded. Not only did he suppress Tang Ba to this extent in an instant, all the leaders present had the strength to do so. However, before suppressing Tang Ba, only Tianyang dared to flirt with the saintess of Jiutian Palace, Tang Fengling. Even the most arrogant and unruly of the four geniuses, Huolingri, did not dare to do so. If he doesn't die after this trip to the tomb, he will be my big brother. Looking at Tianyang's domineering back, Huolingri muttered to himself. Hearing this, Long Taiji, who was standing next to him, immediately cursed in his heart. If Tianyang allowed you to be his elder brother, then his title as the Dragon Prince would be wasted. However, at this time, they did not speak rashly. Their eyes were fixed on Tianyang and Tang Fengling, waiting for them to make a move that would endanger their lives. Tianyang, stop! At this moment, Tang Fengling finally regained her senses. She looked at Tianyang and shouted angrily. Hearing this, Tianyang tilted his head slightly and looked at Tang Fengling with a dangerous glint in his eyes. When those words are repeated a second time, none of you from Nine Heavens Palace will be able to leave alive. Tianyang's voice was not loud, but after hearing this, everyone felt a chill run down their spines. No one would have thought that Tianyang would still dare to speak such arrogant words after carrying out such an arrogant and domineering act. The saintess of Nine Heavens Palace, Tang Fengling, did not just have an exquisite face. Even Long Taiji, Huolingri, and even Saiyu, who was always smiling, were afraid of that kind of strength. Tianyang did not give Tang Fengling any face. If he attacked, Tianyang would be doomed. Tang Fengling had not expected Tianyang to be so arrogant. Her fair finger trembled as she pointed at Tianyang. Her delicate body was trembling nonstop. It was obvious that she was extremely angry. Shut up. Tianyang's tone was indifferent. At this moment, not only was his aura sharp, but his terrifying killing intent, which was like a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood, also exploded. Tianyang was, after all, someone who had experienced countless life and death battles and bloody massacres. What he carried was not only the aura of the Sword Dao, but also the Emperor's aura that had emerged from a pile of corpses. The Emperor's aura. Even if only a trace of this aura leaked out, it was enough to make people's minds change greatly, especially when this Emperor's aura contained killing intent. For a moment, everyone paled and took several steps back. Only Tang Ba was an exception. After all, his legs were already shaking and had no strength left. In front of so many people and with a tomb to explore, I don't want to kill anyone right now. Tianyang narrowed his eyes and said indifferently. Hearing this, the others were stunned. Not killing anyone. He had displayed such a great aura and suppressed so many people, but he did not kill Tang Ba in the end? What the hell was Tianyang doing? However, Yu Jinshan's expression changed when he saw this. In order to suppress Tang Ba, Tianyang had directly broken the battle between the four geniuses and ruthlessly provoked Tang Fengling. Facing Tianyang's strength, they probably wouldn't say anything now. But once they entered the tomb, they would definitely target him. This was something that Tianyang and everyone else knew. But what if the source of all this, Tang Ba, was not dead? The other geniuses would know that because of this guy, their leader had lost face and made a fool of himself, especially the Nine Heavens Palace. The people of the Nine Heavens Palace would definitely not bring Tang Ba along. In other words, with a single sentence, Tang Ba had become the target of public criticism. Big Brother's scheme. Yu Jinshan muttered in his heart, but now was not the time to be praising. Not killing me? Tang Ba seemed to have yet to break away from the happiness of surviving a calamity. He looked at Tianyang in shock, then with a plop, he knelt on the ground. Thank you for not killing me, sir. As long as you don't kill me, I, Tang Ba, am willing to do anything. Tang Ba cried out sorrowfully, but in his eyes there was a flash of hatred. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled slightly. You're willing to do anything? Good. Yuhan, come here. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan was stunned. She did not know why Tianyang called her, but Ling Yuhan nodded obediently and walked over. Master, what orders do you have? Slap this guy's face. Slap as much as you want until you're satisfied. Tianyang pointed at Tang Ba's rough face and said indifferently. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan was dumbfounded. Tang Ba was dumbfounded. Everyone else was dumbfounded. However, while they were dumbfounded, the people of the Nine Heavens Palace only felt a strong sense of anger. Tianyang, don't push your luck, Tang Fengling said angrily. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. Don't say that I didn't warn you. Everyone present was a disciple of a large sect. Everyone knew what he meant. Hearing this, Tang Fengling shut her mouth. A mere Tang Ba was not worth burying the entire Nine Heavens Palace's geniuses. When Tang Ba caught sight of this, his entire body shuddered. The way he looked at the Nine Heavens Palace changed as well. Fine, I'll slap you, Tang Ba said in humiliation. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled slightly. Ling Yuhan snorted coldly and walked over. Although she was a woman, it did not mean that she was a compassionate saint. Ling Yuhan would not be courteous to someone like Tang Ba who wanted to tame her. Slap, 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 slap. He slapped Tang Ba's face countless times in a row. Seeing this, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air and turned their heads away. To be slapped in the face while kneeling, this was the greatest humiliation to a cultivator. 15 minutes later, Tang Ba's face was already swollen beyond recognition at this moment, and Ling Yuhan seemed to be tired from hitting him, so he withdrew his hand. All right, that's all for now. Let's talk about the barrier. Chapter 6:27. Barrier. Hearing this, the people who had finished watching the show suddenly remembered that there was still a barrier behind them. They had discovered the tomb of a Heaven Ascension Stage 3 elite and successfully found the entrance. But they were blocked by a barrier. Isn't it just a barrier? This barrier has been maintained for so many years. How can it still have such powerful energy? A Scarlet Flame sect cultivator was unconcerned. Look at my attack. This barrier will immediately explode. Upper grade, Earth tier, martial technique, Mad Lion Roar. The Scarlet Flame sect cultivator roared. A 6C of soul realm true essence transformed into a roaring lion and charged forward. The violent chi wave instantly swept through the entire space. It even made Tang Ba, who had been slapped a few thousand times, lose his balance. Seeing that, other than Tianyang, a smile appeared on everyone's faces. This move was extremely powerful. Even they did not dare to take it lightly. In their opinion, the barrier would definitely be destroyed. Boom! The Mad Lion roar violently slammed into the barrier, causing it to tremble. Seeing that, everyone was delighted. As expected, even if the tomb of an ancient elite had been preserved until now, it would definitely not have an ancient level of protection. However, seeing the joy on everyone's faces, Tianyang only smiled and did not say anything. For them to be able to find the tomb, there must be something wrong with the barrier. However, who said that it would be powerless if there was a problem? Boom! Another explosion was heard. In the next moment, the barrier trembled even more violently. The joy on everyone's faces intensified. As long as the barrier was destroyed, they would be able to enter the tomb and seize the opportunity. Ha ha ha! Imo Tinya will be the one to open this tomb. The Scarlet Flame sect cultivator was already dancing with joy. However, in the next moment, a strange light flashed from the barrier. In the next moment, the Mad Lion roar that had erupted with unparalleled power was completely shattered. Puff! A terrifying chi wave rushed out. The unprepared Scarlet Flame sect cultivator was instantly caught off guard. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. Seeing that, the faces of those who were laughing earlier froze. They stared at the Scarlet Flame sect cultivator who was sent flying. What's going on? Wasn't it about to open earlier? Why was this guy suddenly sent flying? On the other hand, Tang Fengling glanced at the barrier and her expression turned ugly. The Scarlet Flame sect cultivator was sent flying, but what about him? The barrier, which had been trembling nonstop before, seemed to be completely fine at this moment. It was still standing in its original position. How? How is this possible? Mo Tianya's ability is one of the best in this generation of our Scarlet Flame sect. He's qualified to become an elder. How could he fail? Huolingri was also shocked. He walked to the edge of the barrier and touched it with his fingers. The hard feeling from his fingertips told him that the barrier was intact. Damn it, let me. Huolingri's face darkened, and the green lotus fire appeared on his fist. The next moment, he threw a heavy punch at the barrier. Boom! The barrier trembled again, and this time, it was even more intense than before. Ripples of energy even appeared on the barrier, as if it were about to break. But after the light flashed, the green lotus fire was instantly extinguished. Although Huolingri didn't fly backward, he snorted and took a few steps back. The barrier was still completely undamaged. How is this possible? This time, even Long Taiji was shocked. Huolingri was a genius from the holy land of martial arts. He was extremely powerful. Even if the previous disciple couldn't do it, Huolingri should be able to. However, even Huolingri couldn't do it. Didn't this mean that they had come here in vain? Did the previous confrontation also become useless? After painstakingly searching for treasures and then running here in ecstasy, he was blocked by a barrier. It was like finding a treasure after painstakingly searching for it in a game, only to have 100 monsters that he definitely couldn't defeat jump out and block his path. The good stuff was right in front of them, but they couldn't get it. If Benefactor Huolingri can't do it, then I'll have to do it. At this moment, Buddhist Sai's eyes shone. Then, he slowly stepped forward with the Buddhist staff in his hand. He chanted Buddhist scriptures, and the prayer beads on his wrist spun rapidly. The next moment, a dazzling Buddhist light appeared on his body. Buddhist Sai's slightly narrowed eyes suddenly opened. Buddhist superpower, subdue the dragon and tiger. Buddhist Sai shouted angrily. Then the Buddhist light burst out. A terrifying light burst out and gathered on his Buddhist staff. At this moment, the ordinary-looking, jet-black Buddhist staff suddenly exploded with a golden light and fiercely bombarded the barrier. Boom! A deafening explosion was heard. At this moment, the barrier trembled even more violently, and the energy ripples became more and more numerous. People seemed to see the hope of opening the barrier. However, the ideal was plump, but the reality was bony. After that ray of light flashed, this attack with boundless might was completely useless. Although Sai didn't retreat a few steps like Huolingri, his face was pale. Apparently, he had suffered from the backlash. Seeing this, everyone's heart sank to the bottom. Although the four geniuses seemed to be equal, in fact, there was a difference between the first, second, third, and fourth. Although Sai didn't seem to be very strong, he was definitely one of the top ones. Even he had failed. Long Taiji was on par with him. Tang Fengling was weaker, so it was impossible for her to open the barrier. I don't believe it. We can't break this bastard shell. Let's join hands. Tang Fengling gritted her teeth. She didn't want to leave with her tail between her legs. Even if it wasn't for anything else, she wanted to show the lecher who had taken advantage of her. Yes, let's join hands. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. They activated their genuine vitality and bombarded the barrier. Seeing this, Tianyang shook his head. How could they break the barrier if they didn't have brains? Unless they had the combat power of the reaching heaven state. However, they might not even have the combat power of the reaching heaven state. Boom! The barrier trembled violently, as if it would turn into ashes in the next moment. The energy ripples were like a lake in a rainstorm, spreading wildly. Seeing this, everyone was overjoyed. Joining hands was useful. However, a strange light flickered, and everyone's heart skipped a beat. Mo, Tianya, Huolingri, and Sayu had all been defeated by this light. At this moment, the light flashed. The trembling of the barrier gradually calmed down. Because they had joined hands, no one was injured this time. However, their expressions were extremely ugly. Sitting on a treasure mountain, but unable to obtain it, this feeling was the most depressing. A look of despair appeared on everyone's faces. Boom! A bright light flashed. Everyone turned their heads in shock and looked at the source of the light. They saw Tianyang holding the great void sword embryo, his genuine vitality of the fourth level of the Sea of Soul realm erupting as he walked toward the barrier. Give up. It's useless. Even our joint efforts failed. How is this possible? Seeing this, Tang Fengling shook her head and sighed. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled slightly. That's not necessarily true. In the next moment, Tianyang's gaze focused on that strange light. At the last moment before it disappeared, he slashed out with his sword. Sky Extreme Sword Art, Fourth Sword Firmament. Tianyang roared. A bright light suddenly lit up the whole world. Boom! An explosion that was far louder than anything before was heard. In the next moment, the seemingly indestructible barrier in front of everyone was shattered into pieces by Tianyang's sword. Chapter 628. The barrier had exploded. Looking at the barrier that had turned into fragments and scattered in all directions, everyone was dumbfounded. The first thing they felt was disbelief. That's right, it was disbelief. The barrier that Huo Lingri had wanted to attack, but had been unable to do anything to. They had gathered most of their strength and attacked together, but had still failed to break it. In front of Tianyang's sword, the barrier had exploded. How could they not be shocked? How could they not be dumbfounded? F***CK. Big brother. How did you do it? Yu Jianchen was also dumbfounded. This barrier was not like the bloodline seal in the Dragon Necropolis. Tianyang did not know why he had such a pure bloodline of a true dragon. It was more than enough to open the bloodline seal. However, the barrier of the tomb of a LV3 heavenly completion expert required brute strength to break it. Countless experts had been defeated, but Tianyang had exploded it. What did this mean? For a moment, everyone's face turned cold. Looking at Tianyang, their faces became unprecedentedly solemn. Previously, they had not put Tianyang in their eyes at all. They had thought that Tianyang was just a slightly stronger persimmon. Even if he could suppress the Nine Heavens Palace, when two or more holy lands joined forces, he would only be destroyed. Among the two holy lands, at least one was the Nine Heavens Palace. The remaining one was the Scarlet Flame sect. They did not know about Niefeng Yun, but he could be considered as the basis for their enmity. The Western region Buddhist sect was even more direct. Two of their genius disciples had died at the hands of a genius. If they did not take revenge, Tianyang would really think that they believed in Buddha's mercy. As for the East Sea Dragon Palace, Long Taiji had run to Tianyang's back to wave flags and shout battle cries. However, these three holy lands joining forces were more than enough to deal with Tianyang and the East Sea Dragon Palace. But now, Tianyang had easily exploded the barrier. Did this not mean that Tianyang's strength was greater than their combined strength? For a moment, everyone was extremely fearful. The barrier has been destroyed, so we shouldn't stay here any longer. Let's go in. Tianyang smiled faintly, then strode into the tomb of the third-level heavenly completion realm expert. Long Taiji, Ling Yuhan, Yu Jianshun, and Ao Ling nodded and followed Tianyang inside. Tianyang was too lazy to care about what the others thought. He only knew that his wave of intimidation was effective. As for the other factions, they woke up from their stupor and followed Tianyang into the tomb of the heavenly completion stage 3 expert. Master, how did you become so strong? As they walked, Ling Yuhan exclaimed in surprise. That barrier from before wasn't something that only had a limited number of uses, but was a genuine super strong barrier. If Tianyang could defeat them so easily, didn't that mean that Tianyang's strength had grown to a point where they couldn't contend against him? Strong? How is it strong? It's just that there's a problem with the barrier's design, and I found a loophole. Hearing that, Tianyang shook his head and said via voice transmission, that barrier is divided into 2 levels. The first level is the one at the beginning. It's relatively weak and shaky. The second layer is after the appearance of that strange light. That strange light is the true killing move of the barrier. Once the killing move is used, no matter how strong they are, They can't do anything. Tianyang smiled. However, the moment between the first and second layer is the moment when the barrier is at its weakest. They've already damaged the barrier quite a bit, so I'll aim for its weak point and strike once more. Naturally, the barrier will explode. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan nodded and revealed a trace of understanding. If it was like this, then it could be explained. After all, a fourth-level C of Soul Realm expert possessing the battle strength of the Heavenly Completion Realm was too shocking no matter how one thought about it. As for crushing them all together, after using the Heaven-Devouring secret technique, it was possible. Behind them, the people of the three martial Tao Holy Lands were also discussing. In the end, the conclusion of the discussion was completely different from Tianyang's. Tianyang had terrifying strength. If it wasn't necessary, or if he didn't have absolute confidence, he definitely wouldn't make a move. At this time, Tianyang and the others had already passed through the gap between the barrier and the real tomb and arrived at the edge of the tomb. Boom, boom, boom. Sensing the arrival of Tianyang and the other uninvited guests, the entire tomb erupted with a dazzling light. In the next moment, countless giants broke out from the ground and jumped in front of everyone. Seeing this, everyone's expression changed slightly. Tianyang's expression also became slightly unsightly as he looked at the giants in front of him. Bang, bang, bang. Countless giants rushed out from the ground and jumped in front of Tianyang. Every giant that landed caused the entire ground to tremble. A sharp and powerful aura was unleashed from the giant's body. Seeing this, everyone's expression changed greatly. A total of 81 giants stood in front of them. Each of them was at least 3 zhang tall. 80 10-meter-tall giants stood in front of them. Just looking at them was enough to make one's heart tremble. Puppets and puppets made from the bones of real giants. TSK. This Heaven Ascension Stage Level 3 is quite rich. Tianyang sized up the 81 giant puppets in front of him and clicked his tongue in admiration. The giant race was also a race on Heaven Continent. However, they had gone extinct in the ancient times. Tianyang had only read about them in ancient books. He didn't expect that after 10,000 years, Tianyang would still be able to see the giant race with his own eyes. The giant race? The others obviously didn't know this term and looked at Tianyang in confusion. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly. The giant race is an ancient race. Their bodies are similar to humans, but in reality, their height and weight far exceed that of humans. Especially their bodies, which are comparable to metal and comparable to the dragon race. Not only would ordinary artifacts not cause the slightest bit of damage to them, but they would even be damaged. A 10-meter-tall giant like this can be considered outstanding in the giant race. Tianyang smiled lightly. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed. The giant race? Outstanding person? They'd just entered the tomb, and they'd already encountered such a level of obstruction. Then, what's the strength of these giants? Tang Fengling couldn't care less about her previous conflict with Tianyang and hurriedly asked. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly and looked at the giant puppets in front of him whose eyes were protruding and flickering with dense, killing intent. These giants, on a smaller scale, each of them has a strength of about the 5th level of C of Soul Realm. As he spoke, Tianyang took a step forward. The eyes of the 81 giant puppets also erupted with a blood-red light. Especially those that have formed a battle formation, these 81 added together are about 8th level of C of Soul Realm. Tianyang turned around and smiled faintly. At this moment, the 81 giants had already formed a battle formation and pounced towards them. Chapter 629. Kill. When the giants formed a battle formation and charged at them, everyone's expression changed completely. Damn it, 81 C of Spirit Realm Warriors? 8 C of Spirit Realm Warriors. Huo Lingri's expression changed greatly. He hurriedly controlled the teal lotus fire and charged at the giants. Tianyang, what did you do? Why did they suddenly attack? Tang Fengling's expression changed greatly. She looked at Tianyang and scolded him angrily. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and spread out his hands, revealing an innocent expression. How would I know? I'm just introducing you to the giant tribe. What does it have to do with me if the giant puppet lost its mind and attacked? Hearing this, Tang Fengling only wanted to punch Tianyang in the face. If it weren't for your stupid step, how could these giants have gone berserk? But now, it was useless to say that. If they wanted to get the opportunity in the tomb of a LV3 reaching Heaven Realm warrior, they had to kill. The giant race has been exterminated, but there are still puppets in this world. This is an act that goes against reincarnation. My Buddha is merciful. Let me sigh and enlighten these giants. She sighed and chanted sutras. Holding the Buddha staff, she charged out directly. Huolingri did the same. He controlled the teal lotus fire and attacked as well. Tang Fengling didn't waste any more time. She released the Nine Heavens flame and charged the giants. How dare you invade the tomb of our master? Kill! At this moment, the giant puppets roared and charged at them. Boom! 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 Flames and fists collided, causing ripples in the energy of heaven and earth. The solid Buddhist staff and the solid bodies of the giants collided. Both sides retreated a few steps. Tang Fengling controlled the Nine Heavens flame, releasing one pillar of flame after another, blasting towards this group of giants. However, the giants were not afraid and actually used their powerful bodies to forcibly block this attack. However, the attacks of the others were not weak either. Under the repeated attacks, the giants retreated step by step, as if they were about to be destroyed. On the other hand, Tianyang, who had caused a commotion in the giant battle formation, calmly returned to his side. Sword Emperor, are we not going to make a move? At this time, Long Taiji said. Looking at the mighty giant puppets, Long Taiji rubbed his fists, eager to give it a try. The dragon clan size and physique were the strongest in the entire Heaven continent. Now that he heard Tianyang say that the giant clan could possibly be on par with the dragon clan, as the Dragon Crown Prince, Long Taiji immediately rubbed his palms together. However, Tianyang only glanced at him and did not say anything. Tianyang naturally wouldn't stop the people from the three holy lands of martial arts from acting as good people and helping him. However, how could a battle formation of giants created by a dignified expert at the third stage of the Heavenly Ascension realm possibly only have this much fighting strength? Those who invade Master's tomb will be killed without mercy. At this time, a terrifying roar came from the sky. In the next moment, a giant that was more than 3 times larger than these 10-meter-tall giants fiercely charged over. What? Seeing this, Huolingri's expression changed drastically. Sighing, you did the same. They joined forces and unleashed a full-force attack to block the giant's attack. However, even so, their palms were numb from the impact. They couldn't use their strength for a short period of time. The Giant King is here. There's a good show to watch. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled slightly. The battle formation formed by 81 giants was not bad, but it was just average. However, if there was a commander, then the result would be very different. This 50-meter-tall giant was undoubtedly the king of these giants, the commander of the entire battle formation. What kind of monster is this? Huolingri finally had the time to size up the Giant King. His expression was extremely ugly. This Giant King forced him and Sign Yu to join forces and even suffered a small loss. On the other hand, the Giant King's arms were only left with shallow bloodstains, which were rapidly healing. In this round of confrontation, Huolingri and Sign Yu were actually at a disadvantage. Kill! 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 After the Giant King appeared, the aura of the entire battle formation of giants suddenly changed. From the previous strength and majesty, it suddenly became fierce and austere. True murderous intent flowed out from the giants. The moment the Giant King landed in the battle formation, the aura of the entire battle formation of giants erupted. In the next moment, 81 giant puppets charged out and fought with the people of Ninth Heaven Palace, Scarlet Flame Sect, and Western Region Buddhism. Boom, boom, boom. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere. The space trembled. Waves of air exploded, and energy rippled violently. Although Tang Fengling, Hualingri, and Sighing you had outstanding strength and cultivation of 7th level C of Soul Realm, they still couldn't withstand the joint forces of these giants. Tianyang, you caused these giants to attack, but you're hiding in a corner. What are you trying to do? At this moment, Tang Fengling turned her head and roared at Tianyang, who was watching the show. It didn't make sense that they were fighting in front while Tianyang was watching from behind. However, after hearing this, Tianyang's expression turned slightly cold. He caused it. Even if he didn't cause it, these people would. After all, if they wanted to obtain the treasure in the tomb of a 3rd-level Ascension Realm powerhouse, they had to pass this battle formation of giants. However, the Giant King had already made his move. Tang Fengling and the other two probably couldn't hold on. No matter how much Tianyang wanted to see these martial arts holy lands suffer, he had to make his move. The soul of this battle formation of giants is the Giant King that just appeared. In other words, as long as the Giant King is killed, the battle formation formed by these giants will be incorporeal and will be easily destroyed by us. At this moment, Hualingri also spoke, looking down at Tianyang from above. Therefore, we can only ask Benefactor Tian to make his move and kill the Giant King. We'll take care of everything after that. Tianyang smiled coldly when he heard this. Tianyang smiled coldly. These people's wishful thinking was indeed a good one. When the Giant King made his move, this old bald donkey and Hualingri couldn't stop it. He could already kill it. In their eyes, as long as Tianyang dared to take it, Tianyang would die without a doubt. For Tianyang, it wasn't impossible to kill this Giant King. This Giant King was at the peak of the 7th level C of Soul Realm at most. Using the sky-devouring secret technique to kill, it was no problem. But sorry, I don't agree. Tianyang smiled. Hearing this, the 3 Holy Land Heavens prides who were in the midst of a bitter battle were stunned and looked at Tianyang in disbelief. Did this guy not see the big picture? If they died, how could Tianyang survive? Because it's too troublesome to find that guy to fight one-on-one. Why don't we kill them all? Tianyang chuckled. In the next moment, the great void sword embryo in his hand erupted with a shocking light. The sky firmament sword's devouring power erupted. The sky-devouring secret technique was used. Tianyang's aura instantly soared to a terrifying level. Sky Extreme Sword Art, 4th Sword Firmament. Tianyang smiled contemptuously and slashed out with his sword. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion erupted. In the next moment, the whole world trembled. A sword light that pierced through the sky shot out and killed its way into the giant battle formation. Boom! 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 Even the giant clan's terrifying physical body couldn't withstand Tianyang's attack. In the next moment, Chapter 630, 20 giants were killed in one strike. Countless pieces of flesh and heads were flying in the sky. The blood that dyed the ground red also told Tang Fengling and the other two that the scene in front of them was real. How could it be? These 4 words were the only thought in their minds. Wasn't Tianyang a genius from small force who was arrogant with a little strength? How could he have such powerful strength? It was easy for him to kill them in one strike with such strength. Hualingri was dumbfounded. He was stunned on the spot. He had never thought that the young man, who he had talked to in a condescending tone, was so powerful. This caused them to feel extremely unwell. They were born in the holy land of martial arts. They had received the best training and the most cultivation resources since they were young. That was why they had achieved what they had today. But what about Tianyang? They only knew that Tianyang was the Sword King, who ranked first on the personal ranking list. They also came from the Stars Swordplay sect. They didn't know that Tianyang's real origin was the Northern Wilderness region, which was a remote place. Even so, it was enough to make them feel ashamed. This guy must have used some tricks. Otherwise, how could he have such powerful strength? His eyes were like a poisonous snake's. He stared at Tianyang, who was still in the sword-wielding posture, and became more certain. Tianyang couldn't have the strength that even he couldn't catch up with. Hualingri and Tang Fengling probably had the same idea. Only Tianyang himself knew how normal that strike was. He had activated the sky-devouring secret skill to the extreme and used all the energy he had devoured on that strike. Moreover, he had the powerful body of the divine dragon. It would be strange if he couldn't kill 20 giants. However, Tianyang understood it, but the others didn't. The Wei Long Taiji, Yu Jianshun, and the others looked at Heavenly Sun change from admiration to worship without any intelligence. The disciples of the three holy lands of martial arts could only hold on bitterly in front of the giant battle formation. Their master could kill a quarter of them with one strike. What a magnificent feat! All right, don't be idle. Dealing with the giant battle formation isn't a matter for just one or two families. We still have to enter the tomb to look for opportunities later. Tianyang said. Hearing this, everyone nodded and began to circulate their true essence, charging towards the giant battle array. With the addition of Long Taiji and the other three, and the heavy damage done to the giant battle formation, the entire battle situation immediately changed. Invading my master's tomb and killing my brother, you damn bastard. I want you dead. At this moment, the intelligent giant king roared furiously. Its 50-meter-tall body soared into the air and charged toward Tianyang. The Zhen Yuan of the peak of the 7th level of Sea of Soul Realm burst out. Even Hua Lingri, who was closest to him, did not have time to react. The giant king had already arrived in front of Tianyang. Little bastard died. The giant king roared furiously. Seeing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed, revealing a trace of contempt in his eyes. He did not take the giant king seriously at all. Seeing Tianyang's attitude, the giant king was even more furious. A fist that was several times bigger than Tianyang's head charged toward Tianyang. Insignificant tricks relying only on brute force. The so-called giant king is nothing more than this. Tianyang held the sword in his right hand and extended his left hand to receive the punch as if it was light. He sneered. The divine dragon body erupted, and the rolling divine dragon's dragon power erupted from the divine dragon's dragon core. Coupled with Tianyang's powerful physical strength, blocking this punch was simply too easy. Don't forget, although Tianyang had slashed out all the energy from before, the sky-devouring secret skill was not over yet. The Zhen Yuan that had climbed to the 5th level of Sea of Soul Realm instantly burst out, and even Tianyang's fist became much more powerful. Ignoring the giant king's huge body, he directly struck out violently. Boom! The entire world was trembling. The roar of 10,000 dragons, the roar of a divine dragon, was nothing more than this. The giant king flew backward and spat out a mouthful of blood. With his meager intelligence, he could not understand how Tianyang had suddenly become so strong. However, Tianyang did not give him time to think. With a flash, he disappeared from the spot. Damn it! The giant king's pupils constricted. He hurriedly channeled his physical strength and gathered it on his fist. He punched out at Tianyang, who had appeared in a flash. This punch carried with it a rolling wind. If it hit, Tianyang's entire body would definitely turn into a bloody mist and die. This had nothing to do with Tianyang's strength, but the giant king's confidence in his fist. When he followed his master in ancient times, almost no one could survive after this pair of iron fists landed. This Tianyang was no exception. Unfortunately, history might be like this, but reality was completely different from the giant king's thoughts. You want to do anything to me with this lousy fist? Aren't you looking down on this emperor too much? With a faint smile, Tianyang slashed out with the great void sword embryo in his hand. With one slash, the clouds in all directions moved. Endless wind and clouds gathered, and heaven and earth trembled. The Zhen Yuan that had been raised to the 6th level of Sea of Soul Realm by the heaven-devouring secret technique surged out violently, turning into a terrifying sword light that could almost tear the heavens and earth apart. Sky Extreme Sword Art, 3rd Sword, Star Burial. Tianyang roared. In the next moment, a dazzling sword light pierced through the void like a river of stars. instantly turning the Giant King's iron fists into a bloody mist and violently charging towards the Giant King. The Giant King's expression changed drastically as he looked at his empty hands in disbelief. This sword was actually so powerful. Damn it. Even if I lose my fists, the Giant King, You can still die. Tianyang stood behind the Giant King and smiled faintly. Hearing this, the Giant King's entire body trembled. In the next moment, Tianyang's sword had already landed on his head. The giant race was indeed physically strong. In a head-on fight, Tianyang might not be a match for the Giant King. However, the Giant King's greatest flaw was his enormous size. His size was too large, and the giant race did not have the ability to transform. As their strength increased, their bodies would continue to grow. At the Giant King's level, his entire body was full of flaws. After Tianyang used Star Burial to attract his attention, he naturally sent his sword to the other party's vital point with ease. Sir, I was just confused for a moment. The sharp aura of the great void sword embryo seemed to have already approached his glabella, as if it could take his life at any moment. Therefore, the Giant King had no choice but to lower his head and beg for mercy with a pale face. Seeing this, Tang Fengling, Huolingri, Tenyu, Long Taiji, and the other geniuses were once again incomparably shocked. Chapter 631. Stepping on the Giant King's shoulder, Tianyang held the great void sword embryo and pressed it against the Giant King's glabella. The murderous intent released from his eyes did not seem fake. The Giant King was sure that if he made the slightest movement, the sword in front of his glabella would pierce through his glabella without hesitation and completely destroy his remaining soul power. Sir, I'm willing to be your slave. Please don't kill me. The Giant King begged for mercy. He had lived from ancient times until now, so he naturally cherished his life more than anything. Therefore, for the sake of his life, he did not even want his dignity as the Giant King. Moreover, there was a vicious plan hidden in the Giant King's heart. No one was more familiar with the tomb of a third-level heaven ascension realm expert than him. No one was clearer about the dangers in the tomb than him. When the time came, wouldn't it be easy to use this familiarity to kill Tianyang and the others? Let you go. Hearing that, Tianyang smiled faintly. He looked at the giant battle formation that was motionless because the Giant King was controlled and grinned. This giant battle formation was not an ordinary thing. Although nearly a quarter of it had been destroyed by his sword, the remaining combat strength was still extremely impressive. If he could master this giant battle formation, he would be able to do whatever he wanted in the earthly Emperor Small World. Yes. I'm willing to be your slave. If you ask me to go east, I won't dare to go west. If you ask me to climb a mountain of blades, I won't step into a sea of fire. The Giant King said respectfully. He lowered his huge head and hid the murderous intent in his eyes very well. However, although Tianyang could not see the Giant King's eyes, Tianyang knew that the Giant King was not that simple since he had been subdued so quickly. However, with Tianyang's strength, was there still a need to be afraid? All right, but give it your soul origin. When you become my soul slave, I'll let you go. Tianyang smiled. Hearing that, the Giant King's expression changed. Give up his soul origin and become Tianyang's soul slave? Although the Giant King had already put down his dignity when he begged for mercy, he was still furious when he heard Tianyang's request. As the only remaining king of the giant clan, he possessed the battle prowess of the peak of the 7th level of Sea of Soul Realm. If he were to recover to his peak, he might even reach the peak of the 8th level of Sea of Soul Realm. But now, he was asked to sacrifice his soul source and become a soul slave of a human at the 4th level of Sea of Soul Realm. Even though his life was in Tianyang's hands, he still found it hard to accept. After all, a soul slave was a complete slave. He would do whatever his master wanted him to do, even if it was to die. And if his master died as a soul slave, he would be buried with him. What? Are you not going to hand it over? Tianyang chuckled. However, his chuckle was laced with icy, killing intent. Making the Giant King submit was just a whim of his. If this fellow refused to submit, then sorry. Even if you're the king of an extinct race, even if you're a protected species on the continent, you still have to die. No, I'll hand it over. I'll hand it over. Sensing the killing intent in Tianyang's words, the giant king's face changed color, and he hurriedly said, "A soul slave was a soul slave. At most, he would think of a way in the future. If he died now, then everything would be over." Between life and dignity, the giant king chose life, even if it was temporary. Then, the giant king formed a seal and separated the soul source in his mind and handed it to Tianyang. Tianyang also smiled. After checking it, he refined it. Then, a faint, mysterious connection appeared between Tianyang and the giant king. Tianyang could clearly feel that he could kill the giant king on the spot with a thought, and no matter what the giant king did, it wouldn't affect him at all. The giant king also sensed this, and a bitter expression appeared on his face. He knew that his life was in the hands of this human youth who was only 1/30th of his body. To the giant king of a generation, this was a great humiliation. Unfortunately, the soul source was not such an ordinary thing. Once the soul source was handed over, the giant king would completely become Tianyang's slave. Okay, done. Tianyang smiled and jumped down from the giant king's shoulder. He was not afraid that the giant king would have other thoughts. With the soul source in hand, the giant king's life and death were under his control. On the side, Huolingri, Long Taiji, Tanyu, Tang Fengling, and the others were all dumbfounded. Previously, the giant king who made them miserable and almost wiped out, and even after using all their trump cards, they still found it difficult to deal with, had become Tianyang's sole slave. This contrast made everyone have a kind of unreal feeling. However, Tianyang did not care whether these people were real or not. He glanced at the giant battle formation around him, which was standing there like a log because the giant king had become Tianyang's sole slave, and smiled slightly. This combat power, if used well, would be of great use. Collect. Tianyang stretched out his hand and opened the space bag. A huge suction force burst out, and in the blink of an eye, the giant puppets were collected into the space bag. Seeing this, the people of the martial Dao Holy Land felt bitter. They had risked their lives and almost lost their lives, but the other party had just moved his finger and collected the giant battle formation that they could not resist. Did the gap between people have to be so big? Giant King, it doesn't feel right to keep calling you this title. What's your name again? Tianyang looked at the 50-meter-tall Giant King, who stood like a giant pillar that reached the sky, and smiled. Hearing this, the Giant King shuddered and hurriedly knelt on one knee, causing the entire ground to tremble. I have long forgotten my past name. Master, please bestow a new name. The Giant King said respectfully. Even if he still remembered his ancient name, he did not dare to say it. If Tianyang was unhappy, even if he did not die, he would lose a layer of skin. Moreover, this was also a way for the Giant King to express his loyalty. Regardless of whether it was true or not, after changing his name, he would still be branded with Tianyang's brand. You even forgot your name? Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. Then, he chuckled and saw through the Giant King's method. However, he did not pay too much attention to it. He smiled slightly. In that case, I'll give you a name. You're so tall, and you're the Giant King of the Giant Clan. Let's call you Little Giant, how about it? Tianyang smiled. Hearing this, the Giant King's face stiffened, and everyone beside him was dumbfounded. Little Giant. There were 100,000 king horses galloping through their hearts. Tianyang's naming skills were too. Only Ao Ling was still calm, but the corners of his mouth were twitching. Because 10,000 years ago, Tianyang's mount, the Red Dragon King, was called Little Red. With Tianyang's words, as a soul slave, the Giant King naturally had no room to resist. From then on, Chapter 632. The Giant King was subdued. Therefore, Tianyang and the others naturally passed the first layer of defense of the tomb of the third layer of the Ascension Realm expert. Little Jew, come, tell me about the origin of this tomb. To be able to capture a Giant King as a guard, he's definitely not an ordinary Ascension Realm expert. Tianyang stepped on the void, walking side by side with the Giant King's head, and smiled. Hearing this, the Giant King's face turned bitter. Little Jew? Who the F *CK is called Little Jew. However, the source of the soul was in Tianyang's body, so he could only accept it. This tomb of the third layer of the Ascension Realm expert is indeed not an ordinary person. Although countless Ascension Realm experts were produced during the War of the 10,000 Races in ancient times, the owner of this tomb is not weak. In ancient times, the owner of the tomb of the third layer of the Ascension Realm expert was known as the Sky Tyrant Blade Emperor. He's a quasi-emperor, the Giant King said. When he mentioned the Sky Tyrant Blade Emperor, his face revealed a trace of reverence. When he was alive, although he was the king of the Giant Clan, there were many Giant Kings, and he was only one of them. At his peak, he was only at the peak of the 8th layer of the Sea of Soul Realm. The gap between him and the 3rd layer of the Ascension Realm Quasi-Emperor, the Sky Tyrant Blade Emperor, was unknown. This Sky Tyrant Blade Emperor was called Lu Tiandao. He was a human, and also a dazzling new star of the human race. If he hadn't been ambushed by the demon race in this small world, he would have very likely become a terrifying almighty on the level of the Red Dragon Wuzun. Unfortunately, he died, the Giant King said. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. Tianyang had passed the 9-tempering dragon body and understood the strength of the Red Dragon Wuzun very well. Perhaps he had already surpassed the Ascension Realm and reached the Wuzun Realm. An unknown amount of time had passed. Although the Red Dragon Wuzun most likely died in another world, if he survived, he would at least be above the Wuzun Realm. And the Sky Tyrant Blade Emperor, Lu Tiandao, was actually comparable to the Red Dragon Wuzun. This made him interested. Continue, Tianyang said briefly. Hearing that, the Giant King nodded. Before he died, the Sky Hegemon Blade Emperor also burned his soul and killed the Demon King. His body was completely destroyed, and the only thing buried here is the Sky Hegemon Blade Emperor's clothes. Of course, there are also many treasures here. All the treasures of the Sky Hegemon Blade Sovereign are here, the Giant King said. Upon hearing this, Tianyang nodded slightly and kept quiet. As for the others, they were all confused. What Hegemon Blade Emperor? What Crimson Dragon Wuzun? And the Demon King? A cenotaph? If these words were taken out individually, they would still be able to recognize them. However, when they were combined together, what the heck was this? However, Tianyang had no obligation to explain to them. Not long after, under the lead of the Giant King, everyone arrived at a large hall. This large hall was abnormally mysterious. The surroundings were filled with the fragrance of pills, but it was empty. There were 4 high platforms in each of the 4 corners. However, the high platforms were completely empty. Seeing this, everyone was stunned. They did not know what the hell was going on. This is the myriad pill palace of the Sky Hegemon Blade Emperor. Although the Sky Hegemon Blade Emperor did not understand alchemy, he was very obsessed with alchemy. In this myriad pill palace, there are many pill formulas that the Sky Hegemon Blade Emperor collected over the years, as well as alchemy treasures. Even some alchemy kings from ancient times would rush here like a flock of ducks. The Giant King said loudly. Hearing this, everyone's bodies trembled. Looking at the empty hall around them, they became extremely greedy. A blazing light flashed in their eyes. At this moment, they no longer cared about the previous battle. They all channeled their vital essence and rushed out. In this large hall, only the 4 high platforms were special. Therefore, most of the people who rushed out rushed towards those 4 high platforms. TSK, what a good plan. Countless alchemy kings rush to the myriad pill palace. With just a few words, it's impossible not to have internal strife. Tianyang looked at the expressionless Giant King and sneered in his heart. Even though the Giant King had become his sole slave, he still wanted to play tricks. However, Tianyang would let him know that no matter what tricks he played, he would be vulnerable in front of absolute strength. These 4 high platforms don't look special. What's so special about them? Huolingri looked at the empty high platforms in front of him and frowned. He punched out, and the green lotus fire suddenly burned. Boom! The high platform was hit by Huolingri's punch. The green lotus fire swept up and set the high platform ablaze. However, what shocked Huolingri was that even his green lotus fire could not shake the high platform at all. In other words, the great Huolingri, did not even know how to deal with a high platform. Damn it! What kind of high platform is this? I can't break it. Huolingri looked at the high platform with a trace of anger on his face. Then he punched out again. The flame burned fiercely, but the high platform still did not change at all. It stood there motionless. In other places, the geniuses of other forces were also in the same situation. Their faces darkened immediately. Giant King, are you tricking us? Huolingri turned his head abruptly and glared at the Giant King. Hearing this, the Giant King's face also darkened. Who do you think I am? Do I need to trick you? You are not the people my master ordered to protect. How do you talk to me like this? Do you want to die? The Giant King snorted coldly, and a terrifying pressure burst out. Seeing this, Huolingri's face changed greatly. He was blown away by the pressure, and his face turned pale for a moment. Seeing this, the other people who wanted to question the Giant King shut their mouths. After all, the Giant King was a Sea of Soul Realm expert. If my guess is correct, those 4 high platforms are nothing more than a pretense. Tianyang stood in the center of the myriad pill palace, looking at the pattern on the dome, and smiled faintly. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Then, they hurriedly followed Tianyang's gaze and immediately saw the strange pattern on the dome. It was a perfectly round pill. Seeing this pattern, how could the others not understand? Their faces flushed. They did not observe it themselves and ran to the 4 high platforms in an instant. Their methods were all useless. In the end, Tianyang did not do anything, and he had already found the key to breaking the trap. Seeing this, the Giant King's face revealed a trace of shock. After all, he did not say anything. Under the circumstances where there was no hint at all, Tianyang could still do this. What kind of monster was Tianyang? At this moment, Tianyang looked at the pill pattern on the dome and smiled faintly. A destructive heavenly flame appeared in his hand. In the next moment, the destructive heavenly flame turned into a black gold fire dragon and soared into the sky. Boom! The pill pattern on the dome instantly burst out with light that filled the sky. In the next moment, a huge silver book fell from the sky. On the dazzling silver cover, there were 4 golden characters from the ancient era. Chapter 633, November 14th, an important day. The book was released on April 22nd, and on September 1st for Firmament Sword Emperor. After more than half a year of hard work, it finally welcomed the day of All Channels. All Channels was almost the strongest recommendation in the whole of Yuan, second only to the built-in and big gift packs. However, even with the built-in and big gift packs, it was impossible to surpass All Channels with only a single day. When the author opened this book, his biggest goal was to get All Channels. He was even prepared to write a book that would cost 2 to 3 million. However, today, he gave me a head-smacking surprise. All of this was created by you lovely readers. Thank you to the editor, thank you to myself, and thank you to the readers. So, on the day of All Channels, which was the 14th to the 15th, it would maintain the normal update rate, which was 3 updates a day. Then, on the morning of the 16th, it would explode with a guaranteed minimum of 20 updates and 5,000 new subscriptions plus 1 update. It would be an unstoppable explosion. At 0:00 in the morning, it would start with a guaranteed minimum of 20 updates. Then at 8 o'clock in the evening, it would be calculated again, and according to 5,000 new subscriptions per update, the more you subscribe, the more motivated the author would be, and the more explosive it would be. If the sales on the 16th exceeded 10,000, then, no matter how many subscriptions there were on the 17th, there would be an explosion of 10 updates. Moreover, this week, from Thursday to Sunday, the lowest subscriptions would start at 5 o'clock. In order to get All Channels, the author was even prepared to not do his homework, take a leave of absence, and even get tenosynovitis. Come on, use book coins, book beans, Chidian coins, and RMB to crush the author. Chapter 634. The Myriad Pill Tome. When they saw the ancient text, it didn't matter if these people understood it or not. At this moment, these 4 words appeared in their hearts. These 4 words seemed to have a magical power, allowing people to understand their meaning with a single glance. It's the Myriad Pill Tome, the complete collection of pill formulas that countless ancient alchemists dreamed of. At this time, the giant king couldn't sit still and looked at the silver book in shock. The Myriad Pill Tome. As the name implied, the Myriad Pill Tome recorded countless pills. Among them, not only were there practical spirit life pills, spirit origin pills, and so on, there are also ancient pill formulas that have been lost since ancient times. In ancient times, this Myriad Pill Tome could make alchemists scramble for it. In today's era of decline in martial arts, it was even more maddening. With a complete collection of pill formulas, it could be said that the path of an alchemist would be shortened by more than half. The Myriad Pill Tome. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly as he looked at the silver book. Even he could feel the powerful aura of alchemy emanating from it. It even had a hint of transcendence from this world. In other words, either this Myriad Pill Tome came from a Wu Zun realm alchemist, or this Myriad Pill Tome came from another world. Moreover, a complete collection of ancient pill formulas, even pill formulas that have been lost for a long time. Tianyang licked his lips, a rare trace of passion in his eyes. To a supreme alchemist, there was nothing more important than the Myriad Pill Tome in front of him. However, this change wasn't just limited to the Myriad Pill Tome. After the Myriad Pill Tome, the pill patterns emitted a ray of light again. A pure black pill cauldron engraved with mysterious fire patterns slowly descended from the sky. In the end, it landed on the ground like the Myriad Pill Tome. The Myriad Pill Tome was about 10 feet long and 8 feet wide. It was also a low-grade spirit weapon and could be changed in size. As for the pill cauldron beside it, Tianyang's eyes narrowed. He couldn't recognize it for a moment. At this time, Tang Fengling's exclamation was heard. The legendary supreme pill cauldron, the Xinming fire cauldron. This pill cauldron that has disappeared since ancient times has actually appeared here. What? This is the ancient pill cauldron recorded in your 9 Heavens Palaces records. The profound underworld flame cauldron? Huolingri widened his eyes in shock. The Xinming fire cauldron. Holy sh*t. That's amazing. The Myriad Pill scripture could make the majority of alchemists go crazy, but that was only the majority. This was because there were many pill recipes that even if you knew them, you might not necessarily use them. However, the Netherism flame cauldron was different. The importance of a pill cauldron to an alchemist went without saying. A good pill cauldron could even increase the success rate and efficiency of alchemy. The profound underworld flame cauldron's effect on alchemists was even more extraordinary. If it was graded, it was at least a 6-tier pill cauldron. That's right. After using this trash pill cauldron for so many years, it's time to change it. Tianyang smiled slightly. His pill cauldron was obtained from a small pharmacy before he went to the Ferocious Beasts mountain range more than 2 years ago. It was not even a first-tier pill cauldron and could be described as a fighter among trash. Last time, Tianyang was too ashamed to take it out, so he used the flame pill cauldron to show it off. It was also very dangerous. If he could obtain this profound underworld flame cauldron, Tianyang's alchemy efficiency would definitely reach a new level. At this time, the greed of the other forces for the Myriad Pill scripture and the profound underworld flame cauldron was much greater than that of Tianyang. Buddha said that treasures belong to those who are destined to obtain them. The Myriad Pill scripture and the profound underworld flame cauldron were the possessions of the Sky Tyrant Blade Emperor in ancient times. They're contaminated with a lot of murderous aura and must be purified by us Buddhists. So, if I don't go to hell, who will? The Myriad Pill scripture and the profound underworld flame cauldron will be purified by me. See you. Siyu smiled slightly. Holding the Buddhist staff in his hand, his figure flashed, and he was already in front of the 2 treasures. Even a pig would be able to see the passion in his eyes. Bald donkey, don't go. At this time, Long Taiji snorted coldly and burst out with the speed of a true dragon, directly killing his way out. I purify these two monstrous items. That is a supreme merit. Benefactor Long, why do you have to do this? You also felt the murderous intent coming from behind him. His expression changed. He turned around and struck out with the Buddhist staff. Boom! Sand and stones flew and the space exploded. The moment the two sides exchanged blows, the power was already so terrifying. Dragon roars to the ninth heaven. Long Taiji roared angrily. A terrifying dragon roar erupted from his throat as he directly punched out. Brilliant dragon power erupted, covering the sky and covering the earth as it attacked Siyu. Seeing this, Siyu's expression changed drastically. He snorted coldly, and the Buddhist staff in his hand struck out again. Man I Pami Hum. 6 words, great bright mantra. Siyu snorted coldly and chanted Buddhist scriptures. A huge flaming mantra wheel appeared in front of him. In the next moment, 6 mysterious ancient words erupted with supreme power. Like a bodhisattva descending to the world, it fiercely blocked Long Taiji's fist. Boom, 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 boom. The dragon roar and the Buddhist scriptures alternated. Siyu and Long Taiji were also doing their best. Although they were not alchemists, they knew how important the myriad elixir book and the Xianming fire cauldron were to their forces. If they could get these 2 treasures, their status would definitely rise. Therefore, they were going all out. You can fight if you want. These 2 treasures will belong to me, Huolingri. Huolingri laughed. In the next moment, he merged into the green lotus fire and rushed toward the 2 treasures at lightning speed. Damn it! Seeing this, Siyu and Long Taiji's expressions changed greatly. Huolingri laughed wildly. His palm reached out from the green lotus fire and was only 10 feet away from the 2 treasures. Damn it! Long Taiji's expression changed greatly. He hurriedly withdrew his dragon power. Just as he was about to stop Huolingri, a terrifying pressure suddenly erupted from the myriad elixir book. In the next moment, Huolingri flew backward like a kite with a broken string. He spat out blood and was slightly injured. At this moment, Tianyang's expression showed that he had expected this. If you want to get the myriad elixir book and the Xianming fire cauldron, you have to refine the most powerful elixir in the shortest time to get them. A cold voice came out from the myriad elixir book. In the next moment, the pressure erupted again. With the 2 treasures as the center, the area within a radius of 100 feet was empty except for some people. Those who weren't alchemists were all forcefully pushed out by this pressure. Refining elixirs. Siyu, Long Taiji, and Huolingri were stunned. If you want to get the myriad elixir book, you have to refine elixirs. At this moment, Tianyang's lips curled into a smile. Chapter 635. Alchemists were exceedingly rare in the entire heaven continent. The reason why the Holy Land of Martial Dao was called so was because it specialized in martial Dao and only dabbled in alchemy, formations, and other Daos. Thus, among the dozen or so young geniuses, there were only 4 who remained to take the test of the myriad pill tome. Tianyang, Tang Fengling, and 2 other passers-by from Scarlet Flame Sect and Nine Heaven Palace. I'm a little surprised that you're actually an alchemist. Tang Fengling looked at Tianyang, who was standing calmly, and raised her eyebrows. She originally thought that Tianyang's strength was so tyrannical that he must have specialized in martial Dao. She didn't expect him to dabble in alchemy as well. She was only a little over 20 years old this year. The reason why she had such a powerful cultivation base was purely because she had obtained her ancestors' inheritance and awakened her ancestors' martial spirit. However, the majority of her 7th level C of Soul Realm cultivation base was only borrowed. It was fine if she burst out at the beginning, but if it was a real battle of attrition, Tang Fengling would definitely be the first to be defeated. However, the Tianyang that Tang Fengling sensed had a vigorous aura and a solid foundation. She originally thought that he was a genius who specialized in martial Dao, but in the end, he was actually an alchemist. However, I've awakened my ancestors' martial spirit and have a natural control over the nine heavens flame. Refining a pill shouldn't be a problem. Tianyang's martial Dao cultivation base is so strong, so his alchemy cultivation base is definitely not strong. The other opponents are also unknown people. Therefore, the myriad pill tome and the mysterious underworld fire cauldron are mine. Tang Fengling's lips curved into a confident smile as she thought to herself. At this moment, Tianyang's eyes swiveled. Obviously, the rules of this test were to compete in the strength of the pills refined by the four of them. The fastest and best would obtain the myriad pill tome and the mysterious underworld fire cauldron, the two supreme treasures of alchemy. Such a simple and crude test method was very much to Tianyang's liking. Therefore, Tianyang immediately thought of an even more simple and crude method to solve the problem. Wouldn't he win if he defeated all his competitors? Just as Tianyang swung his fist, intending to attack Tang Fenling, a strong gust of wind suddenly erupted from the myriad pill treasure pond and shot straight at Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression didn't change. He grinned and slammed forward. Boom! A terrifying sound rang out. Tianyang's palm wind and the terrifying gale collided fiercely. After a few seconds of confrontation, the gale dispersed automatically. However, at this time, an invisible barrier appeared between Tianyang and the other three people. Obviously, Tianyang's simple and crude method was useless. Fighting is strictly prohibited in alchemy competitions. At this time, an emotionless voice came from the thousand-pill treasure pond. Hearing this, Tianyang pouted, feeling very displeased. This Sky He Gem and Blade King was really meddlesome. In alchemy, the most important thing wasn't strength. Why would he want alchemy pills after killing his opponents? However, Tang Fenling was shocked when she heard this. Looking at Tianyang, who was looking at her with displeasure, she broke out in cold sweat. Fortunately, the myriad pill treasure pond had rules. Otherwise, she would have been trampled on by this bastard. How boring. Tianyang pouted again. Then, he took out his alchemy cauldron and sat on the ground. The heavenly annihilation fire rose as he began to heat the cauldron. The others also took out their alchemy cauldrons and began to heat them. Tang Fengling's alchemy cauldron was the most dazzling. It had a golden base and mysterious crimson patterns. Below it, there was an equally dazzling nine heavens fire burning. Everything else aside, its appearance alone was enough to give it full marks. This is one of the best alchemy cauldrons in Empyrean Palace, the Universal Cauldron. I didn't expect Empyrean Palace to love their saintess so much that they even took out a quasi-fifth-grade alchemy cauldron. Long Taiji looked at the golden-red alchemy cauldron in front of Tang Fenling. To an alchemist, a good alchemy cauldron was no different from a sword cultivator's sword or a saber cultivator's saber. In fact, it was even better. Tang Fenling had taken out her quasi-fifth-grade alchemy cauldron and used it. From the start, she was already ahead of the others. As for the two unknown passers-by from Scarlet Flame Sect and Empyrean Palace, they also took out their own alchemy cauldrons and summoned their own flames. Although they were far inferior to the Universal Cauldron, they were still average and had reached the third grade. However, Tianyang's alchemy cauldron was simply too horrible to look at. The flames were powerful and could even suppress the nine heavens fire. However, that alchemy cauldron was simply too shabby. It was an ordinary cauldron that looked quite old. The bottom of the cauldron was burned red by the heavenly annihilation fire. Although it hadn't softened, it still showed that the quality of this alchemy cauldron was worrisome. The patterns on the cauldron were also completely different from those on the Universal Cauldron. The patterns on the Universal Cauldron really had an auxiliary effect in alchemy. The patterns on this alchemy cauldron only had one word: decoration. The other materials, durability, and grade could not be compared to the Universal Cauldron or even the ones taken out by passers-by. It was simply a piece of junk. The flames are very strong, but the alchemy cauldron is very weak. Be careful of the cauldron exploding. Although they weren't on good terms, and Tianyang had even teased her, Tang Fenling couldn't help but remind him when she saw Tianyang's shabby alchemy cauldron. Once the alchemy cauldron exploded, it wasn't just an ordinary explosion of vital essence. The fragments of the alchemy cauldron were secondary. The most important thing was the backlash of energy and fire from the herbs. Any one of these two backlash was enough to make one's scalp go numb, much less both at the same time. In Tang Fengling's opinion, Tianyang was just a beginner alchemist who occasionally learned alchemy but rarely used it. His grade wasn't high either. The only reason he stayed behind was to force a duck onto a perch. Hearing this, Tianyang chuckled. He pressed his palms down, and the flames decreased slightly, completing the step of heating the cauldron. It's all right. I'm not fated to have a cauldron explosion. The myriad pill tome and the Xianming fire cauldron are mine, so they'll definitely be mine. Tianyang smiled faintly. Then, countless elixir recipes appeared in his mind, and he began to ponder. Hearing this, Tang Fengling's expression didn't change. Passerby B from the Scarlet Flame sect couldn't help but mock him. You're taking a trash alchemy cauldron as a treasure? Don't you know the importance of alchemy cauldrons to alchemists? If you can surpass us in getting the myriad pill tome and the Xianming fire cauldron, I'll eat my alchemy cauldron. Passerby B didn't hold back in mocking him. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression didn't change. Ling Yuhan's mouth twitched, but she didn't say anything. Long Taiji vaguely knew the relationship between Tianyang and the Sun Moon sect's newest Heaven Ascension state ancestor. His expression was a little strange, but he didn't say anything. The others didn't know Tianyang's strength, so they naturally kept their mouths shut. Only Passerby B kept mocking Tianyang. That's right. It's you. At this moment, Tianyang opened his eyes. A light flashed in his eyes. Chapter 636. As time passed, the group of people also finished heating the cauldrons. At this time, Tianyang, who had chosen the elixir to refine, opened his space bag and took out the herbs for the Star Soul elixir. The Star Soul elixir was a peak 5th grade elixir. In terms of power, grade, and effect, it was much stronger than the Spirit Life elixir. After all, no matter how strong the Spirit Life elixir was, it could only save a person who was hanging on to his last breath. However, the Star Soul elixir could raise a person's soul origin. The current Tianyang's soul strength was far stronger than in his previous life. It was infinitely close to Wu Zun's realm. Therefore, most elixirs that could raise one's soul strength were useless to him. The situation was similar to his physical body. The divine dragon body had almost emptied his body of impurities. No matter what kind of body-tempering elixir he used, it was useless in front of Tianyang. Only the Star Soul elixir had some use. The Star Soul elixir gathers the power of the stars and fuses it into the soul. The only useful elixir I can refine now is this guy. After repeating the effects of the Star Soul elixir in his heart, Tianyang smiled, and the annihilation heavenly flame rose. Then, the first herb was thrown into the cauldron. He's starting to refine elixirs? Haste makes waste. If he's starting to refine elixirs so quickly, it probably won't be a good elixir. That's true. How can an alchemist who can use such a trashy cauldron refine a high-grade elixir? TSK, his martial art cultivation is strong, but his alchemy cultivation is not strong. Passerby B sneered. Then, he glanced at the pile of herbs beside Tianyang, and his eyes widened. His spiritual strength wouldn't lie to him. In this pile of medicinal herbs, just the ones that he could identify were no less than 10 types of medicinal herbs that were 4th level and above. As for the other herbs that he did not recognize but exuded a stronger aura, there was no need to think. They were definitely more precious and rare herbs. He probably used the herbs carelessly and wanted to be lucky. How can this guy refine a high-grade elixir? What a waste of these precious herbs. Passerby B sneered. Then, he controlled the flame and planned to refine the elixir. At this moment, Tang Fengling's clear and shocked voice was heard again. This is the medicinal ingredient for the peak 5th grade medicinal pill, the Star Soul pill. And there are 2 of them. The pill formula for the Star Soul pill is incomplete even in my 9 Heavens Palace. How could you have a complete version? You even managed to gather so many rare medicinal ingredients." Tang Fengling exclaimed in shock. She was the holy maiden of the Jiutian Palace. She had read most of the ancient books in the Nine Heavens Palace. Now that he saw Tianyang open his cauldron to refine pills, he naturally recognized him at a glance. He's still a little narrow-minded. Hearing this, Tianyang chuckled and nodded. At this moment, the first medicinal herb began to melt. Tianyang's mind also came back to his senses. The heavenly flame of annihilation instantly exploded with unparalleled power. It turned into 9 fire dragons that surrounded the herbs and began to spin rapidly. Tianyang's original alchemy technique, the 9 dragons rotating wheel technique. The powerful aura of the 5th grade spiritual fire exploded, causing the surrounding flames to tremble. Passerby A, who had been silent all this while, was still fine. However, because Passerby B was closer to Tianyang, his flames instantly exploded. In the next moment, the precious herbs in the cauldron were burned to ashes by the violent flames. "Damn it, Tianyang, I have no enmity with you. Why are you doing?" Fortunately, this was only the first medicinal herb. If there were more after, he didn't know how to cry. Passerby B suddenly raised his head and roared at Tianyang. However, before he could finish speaking, his mouth gradually widened and his voice came to an abrupt halt. He saw that under the 9 black gold fire dragons, countless medicinal herbs were rapidly purified of impurities and turned into the purest medicinal essence. Tianyang's left hand was refining pills, while his right hand was throwing medicinal herbs into the cauldron. One by one, he threw out medicinal herbs in a beautiful arc, never stopping for even a second. He was multitasking, and it was a multitasking that was extremely proficient in. Passerby B was stunned. He quickly threw in medicinal herbs and refined them at the same time. Was this Tianyang really a beginner alchemist who used a trashy cauldron to refine pills? Not to mention other things. Just this operation alone was something that even his master, a 5th grade alchemist, could not do. At the side, Tang Fengling didn't care about the medicinal herbs she had just thrown in. She stared at the 9 black gold fire dragons that were spinning like wheels and muttered to herself. 9 dragons rotating wheel, 9 dragons rotating wheel. This is the 9 dragons rotating wheel technique. The moment she said this, everyone was shocked. Perhaps some people were not familiar with the name 9 dragons rotating wheel technique, but if one were to mention the creator behind it, almost everyone in the entire Sky Continent would know of him. The Tianji Sword Emperor, after 10,000 years, still had great fame. However, just like Jun Tian and Jun Aoyang, this group of people immediately thought of the legend that the Tianji Sword Emperor had died in the heavenly tribulation and did not inherit his legacy. However, in the entire Sky Continent, only the Tianji Sword Emperor had the 9 dragons rotating wheel technique. No one else had it. Now that Tianyang was using it, it meant that he had definitely inherited the Tianji Sword Emperor's legacy. In other words, the legend that everyone had persisted in for so many years was suddenly not credible. Everyone else was shocked by Tianyang's 9 dragons rotating wheel technique, but Tang Fengling was even more shocked by Tianyang's proficiency in using the 9 dragons rotating wheel technique. Not only was the 9 dragons rotating wheel technique powerful, but its difficulty was also extremely terrifying. Tianyang's smooth and uninterrupted operation made people feel as if the Tianji Sword Emperor was really refining pills here. For a moment, Tang Fengling looked at Tianyang's serious face as he refined pills and was completely stunned. So what if it's the Tianji Sword Emperor's 9 dragons rotating wheel technique? An alchemist who uses a trash cauldron is definitely a trash alchemist. A trash alchemist can't possibly compete with me. Passerby B roared, forcing himself not to look at Tianyang. He lowered his head, lit up the flames again, and hurriedly started refining the herbs again. The Star Soul Elixir and the 9 dragons rotating wheel technique were smooth and fast, but they were done in an orderly manner, directly bombarding Passerby B's spirit. Therefore, Passerby B ignored Tianyang and started refining pills for the second time. However, when he was refining pills, He kept thinking about the star soul elixir herbs piled up like a hill beside Tianyang. He thought about the 9 black and gold fire dragons dancing in the air, and he thought about the smooth, fast, and orderly refining techniques. As he thought about it, his heart was in a mess, and so was his flames. Bang! A muffled sound came from the cauldron in front of Passerby B. The backlash from the flames, inner yuan, and medicinal herbs caused Passerby B to turn pale and spit out a mouthful of blood. This mouthful of blood landed on the cauldron. Boom. Chapter 637. Passerby B's cauldron explosion naturally wouldn't attract Tianyang's attention. At this moment, Tianyang's attention was completely focused on the cauldron. The refinement of the star soul pill was very complicated. If he didn't control the 9 dragons' rotating will technique and the annihilation heavenly fire, Tianyang might not have used this star soul pill. After all, 10,000 years ago, the fastest record for refining the star soul pill was 3 days and 2 nights. However, with the help of Tianyang's annihilation heavenly fire and the 9 dragons' rotating will technique, as well as his soul strength that was stronger than in his previous life, Tianyang had shortened the time by more than 10 times. At this moment, the last medicinal ingredient had been refined and turned into the purest medicinal essence. Refinement complete. Tianyang let out a sigh of relief. Refining the star soul pill, even with his current soul strength, was considered an extremely difficult process. The soul was a mystery within a mystery. The power of the stars was similarly ethereal and difficult to find. Wanting to fuse these 2 mysterious objects into a single medicinal pill, the degree of difficulty was not much lower than an ordinary 6th grade medicinal pill. However, fortunately, Tianyang was a reborn alchemist from 10,000 years ago. Otherwise, he wouldn't have failed. If it were anyone else, they would have been finished long ago. Next is to condense the pill. Tianyang's expression turned serious as he looked at the 9 fire dragons. It was either a medicinal powder, a medicinal liquid, or a hard, solid medicinal essence. Billowing soul strength surged out. The surrounding heaven and earth began to change. Above the vault of heaven, layers of clouds were faintly surging. Seeing this, everyone, even those who were not alchemists, were all shocked. That's a pill, tribulation, thundercloud. That's an existence that can only be attracted by top 6th grade pill. What kind of pill is Tianyang refining? It shouldn't be a 6th grade pill. After all, this thundercloud is much weaker than an ordinary pill, tribulation thundercloud. However, a 5th grade pill can attract a 6th grade pill, tribulation thundercloud. What is this? Everyone exclaimed. Even Tanyu and Long Taiji were no exception. A 6th grade pill, to the current heaven continent where martial arts were declining, was simply a godly existence. In terms of value, it wasn't the slightest bit weaker than a top-grade spiritual weapon. If this pill was used for cultivation or tempering the body and soul, then its value would be even higher. It was comparable to a top-grade spiritual weapon. Tianyang's Sky Sword in his previous life was only a top-grade spiritual weapon, but a 6th grade pill was comparable to the Sky Sword. Its value could be seen. Everyone thought that a 6th grade pill would never appear in this world. In the end, there wasn't a 6th grade pill, but a 5th grade pill that was comparable to a 6th grade pill. In an instant, the way everyone looked at Tianyang changed. It was as if they were looking at a monster, a demon. His martial arts were extremely tyrannical, his alchemy was equally terrifying, and his sword cultivation was equally shocking. He also mastered the Tianji Sword Emperor's 9 dragons rotating wheel technique. If it weren't for the fact that everyone knew Tianyang's background, they would have thought Tianyang was the Tianji Sword Emperor's reincarnation. However, although this thought was just a joke in their hearts, they didn't know that this was precisely the truth. At this time, Tianyang had already begun to condense the pill. Bang! Bang bang! The broken pill cauldron constantly emitted a series of muffled sounds. There was a terrifying amount of medicinal power colliding inside. Even if Tianyang's soul power had advanced by leaps and bounds, There was no way he could completely control the essence of the medicinal power. Seeing this, the passerby who had been eliminated because of the explosion of the cauldron earlier, his eyes lit up, and he began to ridicule. Ha ha! A trash pill cauldron is a trash pill cauldron. So what if he refined a 5th grade pill that is comparable to a 6th grade pill? A trash pill cauldron is nothing but a trash pill cauldron. The essence of the medicinal power in your cauldron of herbs is many times stronger than mine. When the time comes, once the cauldron explodes, the backlash will probably kill you. Passerby B laughed maniacally. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression was as calm as an ancient well. His hands that were controlling the flames were still steady. On the other hand, Tang Fengling glared at Passerby B. You, what are you talking about? Your own cauldron exploded, and you want others to explode? How can you be so immoral? Passerby A from Nine Heavens Palace had been silently refining pills, but there was a trace of dissatisfaction in his eyes when he looked at Passerby B. Cauldron explosions were a taboo for an alchemist. If they said anything about it, they would be beaten, not to mention cursing another alchemist. If it weren't for the fact that she still had to refine pills, Tang Fengling would have used her Nine Heavens flame to burn this guy to a crisp. Hearing Tang Fengling's words, Passerby B shrunk his neck. Tianyang was alone, so there was no need for him to be afraid of mocking him. However, Tang Fengling was different. She was the holy maiden of Nine Heavens Palace, and her status in Nine Heavens Palace was revered. She wasn't someone a mere Scarlet Flame sect disciple could mock. What a clown. At this moment, Tianyang said lightly. At this moment, the pill condensation process had reached the final step. Passerby B's face darkened. He looked coldly at Tianyang, cursing Tianyang in his heart. Extracting medicinal herbs was the most tedious step, and pill condensation was the most difficult step in refining pills. It was also this step that had the highest cauldron explosion rate. Cauldron explosion, cauldron explosion, cauldron explosion. Passerby B kept praying in his heart. At this moment, Tianyang's face turned serious. Waves of soul power surged out. 9 golden black fire dragons spun rapidly like real fire dragons. In the next moment, several balls of medicinal essence rose into the air. Condense! Tianyang shouted, and the 9 golden black fire dragons wrapped around him. They spun rapidly and shrunk rapidly. A tyrannical, repulsive force erupted from the medicinal liquid, trying to disperse it. However, with Tianyang's soul power, how could he give this almost formed pill a chance? The fire dragons roared, and the space exploded. Even with such resistance, it was difficult to escape the pill condensation. In the next moment, the 9 fire dragons roared into the sky and turned into a blazing flame wheel. They condensed into a point and entered the embryonic form of the pill. Boom! A resplendent pillar of light shot into the sky. And in the next moment, the pill tribulation thundercloud in the sky also exploded. It actually formed a pill tribulation? Not bad, but this weak pill tribulation lit bare by itself. Tianyang muttered to himself. He stood with his hands behind his back, allowing the lightning from the pill tribulation thundercloud to strike the star soul pill. The surface of the star soul pill flashed with a resplendent light pattern, blocking this strike. Following that, all the lightning released by the pill tribulation was firmly blocked. Tianyang stretched out his hand, and the star soul pill, with a circle of pill patterns, fell into Tianyang's hand. Chapter 638. The star soul pill was formed. Looking at the light blue elixir in Tianyang's hand that was sparkling with specks of starlight, everyone's heart trembled as greed surged in their eyes. Not only was it comparable to a 6th grade pill, but it was also a star soul pill that could withstand the lightning tribulation and had a circle of pill markings. A star soul pill of this level might even be useful to those who had reached the pinnacle of the continent. Tianyang smiled faintly when he sensed the greed of the people around him. With a flip of his wrist, he put the star soul pill into his space bag. He still wanted to use the star soul pill, but not here. Tang Fengling looked at Tianyang with a complicated expression before continuing to refine. Although she had been completely defeated, Tang Fengling was still persevering. Passerby, it was the same. He had been meticulously refining the pill. Whether it was the explosion of the furnace, the tribulation clouds, or the formation of the star soul pill, none of it affected him. This came as a surprise to Tianyang. Although this kind of person wasn't very talented, as long as he persevered, he might even achieve greater things than those alchemy geniuses. However, Tianyang didn't care about this at the moment. He put away the broken pill cauldron that was on the verge of exploding. Tianyang walked towards the two treasures. They were the myriad pill tome and the mysterious underworld fire cauldron. This time, Tianyang didn't encounter any obstacles as he walked towards the myriad pill tome and the mysterious underworld fire cauldron. Tianyang had perfectly interpreted the words the fastest and the best. He reached out and a suction force burst forth. The myriad pill tome and the mysterious underworld fire cauldron arrived in Tianyang's left and right hands. The myriad pill tome was icy cold. It contained almost all the pill recipes of the ancient era. Tianyang narrowed his eyes as he felt something special. The materials of the myriad pill tome didn't seem to be ordinary treasured paper. TSK, immortal mithril. Although it's only a small amount of immortal mithril mixed with other paper liquids, it's still worth a lot. The person who created the myriad pill tome is truly a tycoon. Tianyang smiled and flipped through it. He immediately felt refreshed, and his eyes lit up. The myriad pill tome was indeed worthy of its name. The number of pill formulas inside was more than 10,000. The myriad pill scripture had records of rank 1 elixirs and rank 6 elixirs. There were even some rank 7 elixir recipes that belonged to the martial honorable realm. As for the elixir recipes for the mysterious realm above grade 7 martial honored realm, there were only a few words in the myriad elixir treasured book. It was as if an alchemist of that caliber was no longer an ordinary numerical grade, but a minor saint alchemist. However, it was only a few words. Tianyang was also confused and did not know what it meant. But overall, it was worth it to exchange a star soul pill for the myriad pill tome and the profound underworld fire cauldron. The profound underworld flame cauldron was not much worse. It was just that if he wanted to use the new cauldron, he still needed a period of time to get used to it. Tianyang also did not study it much. Just as Tianyang was checking the two alchemy treasures, the eyes of the people outside were about to spit fire. Their eyes were filled with envy and jealousy. Not long after, Tang Fengling and Passerby, they finished refining their pills and took out their pills. What Tang Fengling refined was also a grade 5 pill, and it was the spirit life pill that Tianyang was familiar with. However, not only was it far inferior to the Star Soul pill, but it was also inferior to the one that Tianyang refined when he was a half-step C of Soul Realm. Passerby, it was more ordinary. It was only a grade 4 pill, and he was beaten by Tang Fengling and Tianyang. At this point, the alchemy competition was over, and the barrier had completely collapsed. Little Giant, you did well. As expected of the tomb guardian Giant King, you allowed me to obtain these two treasures. At this moment, Tianyang walked to the Giant King's side and laughed. Hearing this, the Giant King's face twitched. Then, his expression changed, and he said respectfully, "Congratulations, Master, for obtaining 2 alchemy treasures." However, only God knew what the Giant King was thinking in his heart. Tianyang naturally saw that the Giant King did not mean what he said. He smiled faintly and did not mind at all. At this moment, Passerby B also returned to the Scarlet Flame sect. He looked at Tianyang with eyes full of anger and jealousy. Then, Little Giant continued to lead the way. This Sky He Gem and Blade Emperor's cenotaph is really interesting. Tianyang smiled slightly. Then, the Giant King nodded and walked to the front to lead the way. This is a martial arts field built according to the Sky He Gem and Blade Emperor's martial arts field when he was alive. There are some of his weapons inside. The Giant King pointed at a huge martial arts field and said. Hearing this, everyone's hearts trembled and they immediately rushed out. As for Tianyang, he relied on his extraordinarily powerful soul strength to instantly find the location where the weapons were stored. As long as it was a low-grade spirit weapon or above, it was taken by Tianyang. The remaining ones were also taken by the people from the 3 great martial arts holy lands. Suddenly, the martial arts field was empty. Seeing this, the giant king's mouth twitched, but he kept quiet. This is the Sky He Jimin Blade Emperor's cultivation room. Only the formation under our feet is of some use. The rest are just some Reiki whoosh. The Reiki was gone. Tianyang stood where he was and looked at the formation under his feet, deep in thought. This spirit-gathering formation seemed to have something more than an ordinary spirit-gathering formation. This is the Sky He Jimin Blade Emperor's whoosh. The treasures were gone. Under the giant king's lead, Tianyang's group and the people from the 3 great martial arts holy lands searched for treasures in the Sky He Jimin Blade Emperor's tomb. They explored and obtained some treasures. They were like locusts passing by. Wherever they passed, not even a blade of grass was left. However, after the Sky He Jimin Blade Emperor's cultivation room, Tianyang rarely took action. Even if it was treasures comparable to high-grade spirit weapons, Tianyang only let Yu Jianshun, Long Taiji, and the others take them. It was just that every time they finished searching, they would stay there for a few minutes. Unknowingly, they had already searched most of the treasures in the Sky He Jimin Blade Emperor's tomb. The only thing left was the Sky He Jimin Blade Emperor's tomb itself. This is the Sky He Jimin Blade Emperor's tomb. These clothes are no ordinary clothes. They are supreme-grade spirit weapon battle armor, stained with demonic and demonic blood. Bloodfire, wild heavenly armor. The giant king stood in front of the most majestic tomb and said to everyone. Hearing that, everyone was stunned. Then, their pupils constricted. They looked behind the door as if their gazes could pass through it. Supreme-grade spirit weapon battle armor. Bloodfire, wild heavenly armor. A supreme-grade spirit weapon was the strongest treasure in this world. There was actually a supreme-grade spirit weapon battle armor in this tomb. Although it was not as good as those weapons, a supreme-grade spirit weapon battle armor was enough to become the cornerstone treasure of a martial arts holy land. Thinking of this, everyone's eyes were green with envy. At this moment, Tianyang smiled and looked at the giant king in front of him. Wait. Chapter 639. Demon King. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Then, they looked at the giant king solemnly. They had never seen a demon before, but they knew the significance of the demon race to Heaven Continent. Now, when the giant king wanted everyone to enter the cenotaph to snatch the supreme-grade spirit artifact, the Bloodfire Wild Heavenly Armor, Tianyang said that the giant king was the Demon King. How is this possible? Demon King. Hearing this, the giant king was stunned. Then he chuckled. Did Master give me a new name? This name doesn't sound very nice. Seeing this, not only Tianyang, but everyone else felt that something was wrong. Previously, the giant king was respectful to Tianyang, afraid that Tianyang would destroy his soul with a thought. Now, he dared to speak to Tianyang like this? This act doesn't seem very convincing. Tianyang sneered. From the beginning of the cultivation room, I had my suspicions. The formation, there was clearly not just a spirit-gathering formation. There was something else, but it was destroyed by them taking away the Reiki. After that, there were a lot of secret rooms with similar things. Piecing it together in my mind, it was a formation related to sealing. This formation is almost as powerful as the one set up by the Ice Emperor in the nest of 1,000 demons. Tianyang said. Hearing this, the giant king's expression remained unchanged. He chuckled. What does this mean? Although Master is powerful in martial arts, sword arts, and alchemy, that's not necessarily the case for formations. Everyone is still waiting for me to open the door to snatch the Bloodfire Wild Heavenly Armor. Master, aren't you afraid that everyone will attack you if you stop them now? The giant king laughed. Hearing this, everyone's faces darkened. They looked at Tianyang with an unfriendly expression. Everyone knew that he and the giant king had a master-slave relationship. How could Tianyang not know that something had happened to the giant king? Perhaps They had colluded to put on a show and let them leave so that they could take the opportunity to snatch the Bloodfire wild heavenly armor. Tianyang didn't get angry when he saw the change in everyone's expressions. He knew that it was impossible to make these people give up on the idea with just a few words. However, Tianyang's original intention was only to stop the Giant King. The others were courting death? It was none of his business. At the beginning, his behavior was normal. However, ever since the appearance of the 10,000 pill scripture, he started to act strangely. As the Giant King of this place and the Tomb Keeper of the Sky Hegemon Blade Monarch, no matter how much resentment you have in your heart, you shouldn't have brought us to the Tomb of the Sky Hegemon Blade Monarch to steal his treasures like welcoming guests. After all, for a gravekeeper with extreme resentment, even if he wanted to betray us, he wouldn't wipe us out so cleanly. At the very least, I'll keep some for myself. Tianyang chuckled. Hearing that, the Giant King's expression changed slightly. Then he forced a smile. I'm just loyal to my master. If the first two can be explained in this way, then what about the treasures that were taken away? If they were left in place, they would form a sealing formation. What do you mean? The Sky Hegemon Blade Monarch might be dead, but whether the Demon King that was killed by the Sky Hegemon Blade Monarch is dead or not is another matter. Tianyang smiled faintly. Hearing that, the Giant King's expression changed. His expression turned sinister. Demonic chi surged from the Giant King's body, and a terrifying Demon King's aura erupted from his body. What a smart human brat. Martial Dao, Sword Dao, and Alchemy Dao are all so tyrannical. Yet this brain is so smart and cautious. If you were born in my heavenly demon clan, you might have at least become an emperor. It's a pity that you were born in the body of a lowly human from the heaven continent. The Giant King said sinisterly. His entire face changed. Purplish-black demonic chi was slowly released. In an instant, the door of the main tomb was surrounded by demonic chi. The Giant King's aura also soared from the heavily injured 7th level sea of Soul Realm to the peak 8th level sea of Soul Realm. With a flip of his hand, he could kill Long Taiji, Hualingri, Tanyu, Tang Fengling, and other geniuses. Seeing this, everyone's expression changed drastically. This Giant King, as Tianyang said, was really a Demon King. They had never seen a Demon King, but they knew how terrifying a Demon King was. Their hearts trembled violently, and even a trace of fear appeared. The Heavenly Demon Clan was a legendary enemy, and the Demon King of the Heavenly Demon Clan was equivalent to an ordinary emperor of the human race. Some of the stronger Demon Kings were even comparable to great emperors. Previously, when Tianyang dealt with the mad Demon King Enlai in the Dragon Necropolis, it was relatively easy to deal with him because he only had a soul body. However, the Demon King in front of them had possessed the Giant King and had a physical body. His strength had naturally advanced by leaps and bounds. Just by standing in the same spot without moving, they felt the threat of death. The reason why you're encouraging us to take the Bloodfire Wild Heavenly Armor inside is probably because this Bloodfire Wild Heavenly Armor is the core of this sealing formation, right? If we really take it away, then a real Demon King will descend into the world. At that time, out of the hundreds of thousands of people participating in the martial arts conference, he'll be lucky if only a few dozen are left. Tianyang smiled slightly. Hearing this, the Giant King's face became even gloomier. This guy was actually right. Then, the Giant King sneered. So what if you saw through me? Right now, I've already removed all the branch points. There's only one Bloodfire Wild Heavenly Armor. How can you suppress this king? Human brat who was born in the wrong place, die? The Giant King sneered. In the next moment, his figure flashed, and he charged out. Tianyang, hurry up and use your soul origin to shatter this Giant King's soul. At this moment, Tang Fengling's expression changed drastically as she hurriedly said. Hearing this, Tianyang snorted coldly. Shattering the Giant King's soul will only make the Demon King more compatible with the Giant King's body. Do you want to die quickly by doing this? In the next moment, a cold light flashed. Tianyang held the great void sword embryo and slashed out. A resplendent starry sword light shot out. Star Annihilation Sword. Boom! The Star Annihilation Sword from the Star Sword sect erupted with a sword light that was tens of thousands of feet long in Tianyang's hand. It soared into the sky and collided fiercely with the Giant King's huge palm. Immediately, sand and stones flew and space trembled. You can actually block this king's attack? Seeing this, the Giant King raised his eyebrows and sneered again. However, this attack is just a casual attack from this king. The aura of the peak 8th level sea of Soul Realm suddenly erupted. Now, this is this king's true attack. To be able to die at the hands of this king, Inpa, you lowly human race, you will be honored when you reach the underworld. Sky Demon Fist. Chapter 640. Boom! Heaven and earth suddenly trembled under the terrifying pressure of the Sky Demon Fist seal. Even if this space belonged to the Sky Hegemon Blade Emperor's tomb and was extremely sturdy, it could not escape the fate of collapse. Seeing this, Saiyu, Long Taiji, Huolingri, Tang Fengling, and the others were all stunned. It was hard to imagine that the Giant King, who was neither hot nor cold before, and at most suppressed them, suddenly had such terrifying power. From the looks of it, didn't that mean that the Giant King could have easily killed them before? Although his cultivation was only at the peak of the 8th level of the Sea of Soul Realm, his actual battle strength was almost at the 9th level of the Sea of Soul Realm. As expected of the Demon King, his remnant soul is suppressed and possessed by a half-dead Giant King, yet he still has such battle strength. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled faintly. Looks like you're not weak among the heavenly demons who invaded Heaven Continent. Facing the incoming Sky Demon Fist seal, Tianyang's expression was indifferent. He did not immediately counterattack, but began to chat. Hearing this, the Giant King was stunned, then sneered. At least you have some eyesight. Inpa, was also a great general when the Demon Emperor led the invasion of the Tianshao Great World. However, I was schemed against by the so-called Sky Hegemon Blade Emperor of your lowly human race, who used his life to suppress this king. Otherwise, this Tianshao Great World would have long been reduced to a slave territory of my heavenly demon clan. Inpa laughed loudly. Hearing this, everyone's expression immediately turned ugly. However, hearing this, Tianyang's expression was calm. Tianyang, who had dealt with the heavenly demon clan for decades, naturally knew what kind of character they were. Inpo's arrogance was also within his expectations. It's just that the heavenly demon is only using the heavenly demon fist seal, yet so powerful. What a joke! Tianyang suddenly laughed. Hearing this, Inpo's expression immediately darkened. Only this power? Shameless boasting. In front of my Sky Demon Fist seal, even if you have a high-grade spirit weapon, you still can't escape death. Sky Devil Fist, kill! Inpa grunted coldly. In the next moment, the heavenly devil fist erupted with a monstrous devilish light, and its speed rose to the limit as it shot fiercely towards Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang remained calm. The great void sword embryo in his hand flashed. If I say it's not powerful enough, it means it's not powerful enough. Sky Extreme Sword Art, 4th Sword Firmament. A terrifying sword light that was above the heavens, and the earth shot out from the great void sword embryo. The sword light that could break the heavens, and the earth also revealed its ferocious appearance. The majestic and domineering sword strike, without any fancy moves, seemed to have the power to crush everything as it collided with the heavenly demon fist imprint. Boom! Boom! On the heavenly demon fist, rays of demonic light flashed and attacked the firmament sword. However, the firmament sword was not afraid at all. It released rays of sharp sword light and attacked the heavenly demon fist. The ground beneath Tianyang and the Giant King's feet instantly cracked. When the others saw this, they all woke up. If you don't want to die, run. Tianyang snorted coldly and said. Hearing this, everyone seemed to have woken up from a dream. They could not care less about the blood-fire wild heavenly armor or the high-grade spirit weapons. No matter how important these things were, they were far less important than their own lives. Very quickly, with the exception of Ling Yuhan, everyone had left this place. "Why aren't you leaving?" Tianyang said. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan smiled. "Master is here. As a disciple, how can I abandon Master?" Tianyang's expression froze. Then, he looked at Ling Yuhan's gentle but firm smile, sighed softly, and nodded. In the next moment, Tianyang grinned. In his soul sea, the power of his martial soul was released crazily. "Everyone has left. It's time to show my true skills." Sky Firmament Sword, martial soul talent, devouring sky. Tianyang roared. In the next moment, a devouring power that could devour the heavens and earth erupted from Tianyang's body. This time, against Heaven Demon King Inpa, Tianyang had no scruples. He completely activated the devouring power of the sky, devouring secret technique. Apart from the main tomb chamber where the blood-fire wild heavenly armor was placed, everything else, including the ground beneath his feet, the spirit energy in the world, and the surrounding bricks and stones, all turned into pure and true energy and converged into Tianyang's body. The complete version of the sky-devouring secret technique could devour anything. Even the demonic light and demonic chi on the sky demon fist was the same. Even to the sky firmament sword, these demonic lights and demonic chi were great supplements. In just a few seconds, Tianyang had already devoured a huge amount of energy. His true essence cultivation base broke through bit by bit. Peak of the 4th level of Sea of Soul Realm. 5th level of Sea of Soul Realm. Peak of the 5th level of Sea of Soul Realm. 6th level of Sea of Soul Realm. Peak of the 6th level of the Sea of Soul Realm. After surging through several small realms, Tianyang finally stopped. And at this time, the light of the great void sword embryo in Tianyang's hand grew brighter and brighter. The peak of the 6th level of the Sea of Soul Realm was completely different from the 4th level of the Sea of Soul Realm. In such a short time, it actually increased by so many episodes. Seeing this, Inpo's expression changed. Then, he revealed a trace of greed. This kid must have some incredible secret technique on him. If I obtain the secret technique, I, Inpa, might also become an emperor one day, Inpa said greedily. In the next moment, his figure shot out like an arrow, ruthlessly attacking Tianyang. "Kid, hand over the secret technique, and I can leave you with an intact corpse." Impa laughed sinisterly. The giant king's 50-meter-tall body almost shattered the air, emitting an ear-piercing sonic boom. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly. The great void sword embryo in his hand shone brightly. Piles of white bones seemed to appear under his feet. Everything around him instantly turned blood red. "Slaughter domain, open. You want my secret technique? Then ask my sword first. Stick sword art, 4th style, Tao of Azura." Tianyang roared. Monstrous killing intent gathered, suffused with layers of killing intent, and charged out. The blood-red sword light cut through the air, ruthlessly slashing at Inpo with a terrifying speed. So strong all of a sudden. Seeing this, Inpo's expression changed greatly. Then, a trace of a sinister smile appeared on his face. "But no matter how strong you are, in front of this king, human ants will forever be human ants." As he spoke, Inpa bit his fingertip, and a drop of pure, black, demonic blood shot out. Blood to blade. Demonic blood blade. Inpa laughed loudly. In the next moment, that drop of pure, black, demonic blood suddenly elongated, turning into a sharp and slender blade. In the next moment, it fiercely collided with Tianyang's Tao of Azura. "Die for me. Demonic blood blade. 10,000 creations blood transformation." Chapter 641. 10,000 mammoth blood transformation. Inpa roared. Monstrous demonic chi released a boundless bloody light that dyed the entire heaven and earth blood red. It was as if everything in the surroundings had become a boundless purgatory. Just a glance was enough to make one lose their mind and fall into chaos and fear. Because this scene of boundless purgatory was exactly a part of the demon world in Inpo's memory. Blood. Seeing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and revealed a trace of a smile. Not bad. This place is really not bad. In the next moment, the slaughter domain under Tianyang's feet blazed with light. Almost the same bloody light, yet clearly separated, appeared. The Azura Dao sword completely erupted. It doesn't matter what demon world it is. Those who block my path will only die. Tianyang laughed loudly. The great void sword embryo in his hand released a boundless bloody light that fiercely collided with Enpo's 10,000 mammoth blood transformation. Boom! Bloody flames burned and bloody light splattered in all directions. Streaks of crimson-red energy ripples were released, and layers of airwaves almost shattered everything in the surroundings. And the great void, sword embryo, and demonic bloodblade also fiercely collided. Bang, 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 bang. In a short instant, Tianyang and Enpa didn't know how many rounds they'd exchanged, nor did they know how many times they'd swung their swords. But they were very clear that they actually couldn't do anything to each other. Boom! Another sword slashed out, and Tianyang and Enpo's figures retreated explosively at the same time. The faint smile on Tianyang's face never faded, but Enpo's expression changed from the initial arrogance to the current bewilderment and uncertainty. He'd practically used all his means, but why couldn't he do anything to this fourth-level sea of soul realm human ant in front of him? Damn it! Could it be that he's this generation's strongest heaven's pride? This human race has a peerless heaven's pride in every generation. Truly abominable. Enpo's eyes were crimson red as he stared fixedly at Tianyang. In ancient times, it was a prodigy of the human race who suppressed my emperor. Another prodigy sealed this king. A dangerous light flashed by as Enpo muttered to himself. If Tianyang was allowed to continue growing, he might become another Sky He Gem and Saber Sovereign or another Crimson Dragon Wuzun. At that time, the Demon Clan would never be able to conquer the entire Sky continent. I don't believe that the prodigies of the human race are that strong. Enpo roared. In the next moment, layers of demonic shadows appeared. Enpo's figure disappeared on the spot and appeared in front of Tianyang in an instant. Die, brat. Enpo laughed sinisterly. The heavenly demon bloodblade in his hand shone with countless rays of bloody light. The blade, infused with Enpo's demonic aura, slashed down from above. 1,000 demons rise to the heavens. In the next moment, the roars of millions of demons seemed to ring in Tianyang's ears. Waves of soul attacks surged towards him. The blade, which was powerful enough to kill an expert like Long Taiji, also arrived at Tianyang's forehead. Divine Dragon King's Sword. Tianyang suddenly roared. The 108 Divine Dragon tattoos released a brilliant light. In the next moment, Tianyang slashed out with his sword. Boom! Energy shot in all directions, and sparks flew. Enpo looked at the long sword that suddenly appeared in front of him in disbelief. His expression changed greatly. This is the power of the Divine Dragon bloodline. How can a human like you have the Divine Dragon bloodline? Enpo roared. There seemed to be a trace of fear in his eyes. It was as if the Divine Dragon he was talking about was an incredible figure. Although Tianyang did not know why Enpo was doing this, he knew that this was a great opportunity. Sky Extreme Sword Technique, Fourth Sword Firmament, Divine Dragon King Sword, Sky Extreme Sword Technique, plus the Great Void Sword Embryo. The Massacre domain was instantly covered by the Firmament domain, simulated by the Great Void Sword Embryo. With the two domains superimposed, the terrifying power that erupted was enough to destroy the world. The two superpowers merged into one. At this moment, Firmament was almost the strongest sword that Tianyang could perform. Boom! The annihilating heavenly fire burned, and the power of the sun poured into the sword. A powerful sword light suddenly shot out. What? Seeing this, Enpo could not care less about the Divine Dragon bloodline. His expression changed greatly. The demonic bloodblade in his hand was about to slash out, but an extreme cold suddenly froze his hands. Enpo turned his head in disbelief. He saw Ling Yuhan, who was at the first level of the Sea of Souls realm, who he had previously ignored, at this moment, holding the cold sky sword in her hand and releasing endless cold power to freeze him. This is the Nine-Nether Saint body. Inpo's expression changed greatly as he sensed Ling Yuhan's physique. His expression was extremely ugly. In a world like the Tianshao Great World, how could there be a saint body? This saint body even froze him. Seeing that the fatal sword light was about to pierce through his head, Inpa did not care about anything else. He directly roared and ignited his demonic chi. Demonic disintegration art. Break for me. A strange light appeared on Inpo's body. Inpo's aura suddenly surpassed the limit of the peak of the 8th level of the Sea of Souls realm and skyrocketed all the way to the half-step, reaching Heaven realm. The demonic disintegration art was the demonic clan's last resort. Once it was used, if there was no opportunity, one's cultivation would be fixed for life. However, compared to cultivation, one's life was obviously more important. Demonic disintegration art? Tianyang's expression froze slightly, then he smiled slightly. The sky sword separated from the great void sword embryo and turned into a brilliant sword light. Devour. The sky sword instantly shot out, carrying an endless devouring power. In an instant, it arrived above Inpo's head and ruthlessly stabbed at his head. Ha ha! I've now used the demonic disintegration art. No matter what you do, it's useless. You actually forced me to use the demonic disintegration art. I'll definitely eat you alive, extract your souls, and use the most vicious flames to burn you for 100,000 years. Impa laughed loudly. Although he was still frozen, in his heart, he already had victory in his grasp. After all, he was now a half-step reaching Heaven realm. Is that so? Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly. The devouring power on the sky sword suddenly erupted. The burning demonic chi, demonic light, and even the power of the demonic disintegration art were all rapidly devoured by the sky sword. The power that Inpo obtained through the demonic disintegration art was not only rapidly disappearing, but it was also being absorbed by the sky sword along with Inpo's original power. How is this possible? Sensing that his cultivation level had slipped, Inpo's face was filled with disbelief. However, in the next moment, the devouring power of the sky sword had already touched his origin. And at this time, Firmament's sword pierced through Inpo's forehead, shattering his soul. The demonic chi origin immediately turned into a stream of light and was devoured by the sky sword. No! At the last moment, Inpa only had time to roar loudly before completely disappearing into thin air. As for the sky sword, after devouring the demonic chi origin, it released streaks of 9-colored xinguang. This time, the 9-color xinguang was more dazzling and bright than the previous few times. It even broke through the restraints of the earthly Emperor Small World in a place that Tianyang couldn't see and came to the Tianshao Great World. As long as one's cultivation was above the Dao Fire Realm, one could see it. It was an extremely dazzling 9-colored light that illuminated the entire continent. As for Tianyang, he didn't know all of this, but he understood. After devouring Inpo's demonic chi origin, the Sky Sword, the Sky Sword had finally evolved into Chapter 642, Heaven Class Martial Soul. Tianyang looked at the sky firmament sword in front of him with surging emotions. The entire sky firmament sword was illuminated by the 9-colored xinguang, as if it was formed by the 9-colored xinguang. After more than 2 years, the sky firmament sword had finally grown from a low-grade yellow-class martial soul to a heaven-class martial soul today. Heaven-class martial souls were a legend. Compared to heaven-class martial skills and heaven-class martial skills, they were even rarer legends. Ever since the great destruction of civilization and the emergence of martial souls, there had never been a large number of heaven-class martial souls. There were still some heaven-class martial skills and heaven-class martial skills 10,000 years ago, but ever since the great destruction of civilization 10,000 years ago, the number of heaven-class martial souls could be counted with one's fingers. This showed how rare heaven-class martial souls were. Now, Tianyang's sky firmament sword had finally broken the legend, becoming a heaven-class martial soul from low to high. How could he not be excited? At the side, Ling Yuhan also looked at the 9-colored Xingguang sword in front of her in shock. Although Ling Yuhan didn't go to the Soaring Cloud sect ceremony, she immediately knew that Tianyang had awakened a low-grade yellow-class martial soul. A martial soul was determined by the heavens and couldn't be changed. Only someone like Ling Yuhan, who had the bloodline of a god, could use the power of the bloodline to awaken a martial soul. In fact, she didn't go from low to high. From the beginning, she was a 9-tailed sky moon fox that was materialized by the power of the bloodline. It was just that she had to awaken it step by step. However, Tianyang only had the bloodline of a human and was ordinary. There was nothing special about him, but he could counterattack all the way. Thinking of this, Ling Yuhan couldn't help but blush. She was extremely excited. Tianyang was overjoyed inside, but in the sky continent, almost the entire world was shocked. What? What is that? Jun Tianyi and Jun Tian stood in the middle of the sun-moon sect as they stared at the 9-colored Xingguang in the sky. They were shocked to the extreme. This 9-colored Xingguang made even them feel a little powerful. It could be said that they were nothing in front of this 9-colored Xingguang. This kind of heaven and earth anomaly has never appeared before. Even among the secret realms that our central region has opened in the past, the most we have seen was the 3-colored Xingguang. Moreover, it was only the size of one sect. Look at this 9-color Xingguang. Not only does it surpass the 3-color Xingguang in terms of level, it also surpasses the 3-color Xingguang in terms of range. It probably covers the entire central region. It might even cover an even greater area. Jun Tianyi exclaimed in shock. Ever since he had broken through to the reaching heaven state, his horizons had been broadened, and he had never been so shocked before. He had thought that anything that happened in the Tianshao Great World, even if someone had become an emperor or a reaching heaven state expert had fallen, wouldn't surprise him. However, the 9-color divine light that penetrated the heavens and the earth completely shocked him. Central region, Scarlet Flame sect. Damn it, what is this thing? Why do I feel that the dignified Scarlet Flame Supreme, have to bow down to it? A boorish middle-aged man looked at the 9-colored Xingguang in the sky and exclaimed in shock. His legs went soft, and he almost knelt down. If others saw this scene, they would definitely be shocked. After all, this person was none other than the Scarlet Flame sect's great ancestor, Scarlet Flame Supreme. Scarlet Flame Supreme was at level 4 of the reaching heaven state. He was known as the person closest to becoming an emperor. However, even so, Scarlet Flame Supreme was still shocked. After all, this 9-color Xingguang was really too powerful. 9 Heaven's Palace. This aura. A graceful woman was standing by the window, gazing at the 9-color divine light that covered the world. Although she wasn't as distressed as Supreme Qi Yin, one could still tell from the cold sweat that constantly seeped out of her forehead. At this moment, the master of 9 Heaven's Palace wasn't in a good state either. Although I can't see where it originated from, my 9 Heaven's Palace seems to be far away. Otherwise, I would have knelt down already, said the master of 9 Heaven's Palace. Looking at the communication token in her hand, the master of 9 Heaven's Palace was still swearing on it. The leaders of the holy lands of martial arts all had their own ways of contacting each other. When a 9-colored Xingguang appeared, they immediately contacted each other. However, Scarlet Flame Supreme, the great ancestor of the Scarlet Flame sect, had almost knelt down and was now unable to move. Although the great ancestor of Buddhism of the Western region could still move freely and was in a much better state than Scarlet Flame Supreme, his face was full of fear at this moment, thinking that a god had descended. Jun Tianyi of the Sun-Moon sect, the newest reaching heaven state expert, was in a better state and was still in the mood to talk. As for her, the master of 9 Heaven's Palace, I'm afraid I can't move either, said the master of 9 Heaven's Palace bitterly. They were the great ancestors of the holy lands of martial arts, the overlords of heaven and earth. However, in front of the 9-color Xingguang, Each and every one of them was completely suppressed. The so-called connection was just a joke in front of the true heavenly might, Eastern Sea. A golden dragon was lying quietly at the bottom of the sea. However, its huge dragon eyes suddenly opened. A terrifying golden light shot out, stirring the entire Eastern Sea. Looking at the nine-colored Xinguang in the sky, the golden dragon muttered to itself, "The nine-colored Xinguang, the heavenly might? What else in this world can cause such a phenomenon?" Then, the golden dragon's tail suddenly swung. The aura of a six-stage reaching heaven state was released. Earthly sovereign small world, in the tomb of sky, tyrant saber sovereign. Tianyong looked at the nine-colored Xinguang in front of him that was gradually withdrawing the sky cloud sword, and his heart trembled. A huge and complicated message was transmitted to his mind through the sky cloud sword. The sky cloud sword was able to devour countless weapons in my previous life. In this life, it can devour the power of martial spirits and demonic chi. It is indeed extraordinary. The secret of the sword that I forged is not small. Tianyong smiled slightly. The sky cloud sword transmitted a huge amount of information to him, including the increase of the sky cloud sword martial spirit's talent, the strengthening of other devouring powers, and many other things. However, there were only 4 words that were useful. The true name of the sky cloud sword, the firmament emperor sword. This was the true name of the sky cloud sword. It was also the true name that was revealed after it was upgraded to a heaven-class martial spirit. The firmament emperor sword. These 4 simple words revealed a majestic aura that made Tianyong's heart tremble. Then, he revealed a faint smile. Although Tianyong did not know the meaning behind these 4 words, Tianyong only needed to know. The current him was stronger, and that was enough. "Come back." Tianyong chuckled. The sky cloud sword's figure suddenly flashed and appeared in Tianyong's hand. That feeling of connection instantly appeared on Tianyong's body. At this moment, the 9-colored Xinguang hidden inside the sky cloud sword suddenly erupted. It condensed into a 9-color Xinguang that turned into a torrent and poured into Tianyong's endless spiritual sea. Because of the sky cloud sword's evolution, his cultivation that had fallen back to the 4th stage of Sea of Soul Realm suddenly skyrocketed. 4th stage of Sea of Soul Realm. Peak of 4th stage of Sea of Soul Realm. 5th stage of Sea of Soul Realm. 5th stage of Sea of Soul Realm. Chapter 643. The peak of the 5th level of the Sea of Soul Realm. The evolution of the sky firmament sword allowed Tianyong, who had just stepped into the 4th level of the Sea of Soul Realm, to reach the Spirit King realm in one leap. Moreover, he was not weak among the Spirit Kings. It has only been less than 2 months since the start of the martial arts conference, and I have jumped 2 realms in an instant. Tianyong clicked his tongue. Even he did not expect his cultivation to improve so quickly. However, in the earthly emperor small world, there were indeed countless opportunities and dangers. Dangers accompanied opportunities. This kind of environment was the best place to train a cultivator. Tianyong's rapid improvement was understandable. The great Void Emperor said that after I become a Spirit King, I will find him to destroy the Demon King suppressed under the Great Void Palace. Now it seems, thinking of the Great Void Emperor, Tianyong suddenly smiled. Back then, he was only at the peak of the Sea of Soul Realm. Facing the Demon King of the Heaven Ascension Realm, he was just an ant. However, in just a few months, not even a year, his cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. He had even slain quite a number of Devil Kings. Today, Tianyong would not feel the slightest bit of fear when facing the Flame Demon King, who was suppressed under the Great Void Palace. He might even feel that a large wave of experience points belonging to the Sky Firmament Sword was surging towards him. When I made the great vow of the Heart Demon, I seemed to use years as a unit. TSK. After the martial arts conference ends, I will go back to the Great Void Secret Realm to try it out. Tianyong smiled slightly. Then he retracted his aura. His entire person became simple and unadorned, as if he was an ordinary person. However, Would an ordinary person's physical body float in the air with an indifferent expression? At this moment, Ling Yuhan was not only surprised, but shocked. Her nine-nether saint body was as insignificant as dust in front of Tianyang. At this moment, Tianyang looked like an ordinary person, but he seemed to have blended into the world. Vaguely, he had reached the realm of returning to his original state. A heaven-ranked martial spirit is indeed extraordinary, Ling Yuhan praised in her heart. However, she didn't know that Tianyang's transformation wasn't due to his heaven-ranked martial spirit. Tianyang's Tao heart had also become more open and bright after the heavenly firmament sword's evolution. Not a speck of dust. In the past, Tianyang's Tao heart was at most limited to this world. However, the current Tianyang had the foundation and realm to step into Wu Zun's realm. In fact, it was even possible for him to reach the elusive realm above Wu Zun's realm. All right, they're probably waiting outside. Let's go. Tianyang chuckled and didn't ask about Ling Yuhan's nine-nether saint body. As long as Ling Yuhan had the nine-nether saint body, as long as she was strong enough, it wasn't impossible for her to activate it. He had seen Ling Yuhan's efforts these days, but he didn't care. For him, as long as Ling Yuhan was strong, it was enough. At least, if he was alone, he would feel more at ease. Okay. Ling Yuhan nodded obediently. Then, they walked out of the ruins and came to the previous tomb. However, this tomb wasn't much better than the main tomb. The martial arts field, the cultivation room, and the farthest myriad pill hall were in a mess. Some had collapsed into piles, and some had more than half of the ceiling cut off. It was a horrifying sight. Although the battle between Tianyang and Yin took place in the spacious main tomb, the aftermath of the battle didn't care about the difference between the main tomb and the secondary tomb. The battle between the two peak sea of Soul Realm warriors had directly turned the tomb of the Sky Tyrant Blade Emperor into a pile of ruins. Apart from a chamber where the Bloodfire Mad Sky armor was stored, which was still relatively intact, the rest could not even be described as a complete mess. Fortunately, Sky Hegemon Blade Emperor is dead. Otherwise, he would have killed me, Tianyang muttered. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan burst into laughter. This master of hers, at times, was really quite adorable. Huh, those guys haven't left yet? Tianyang walked out of the ruins and looked into the distance. Suddenly, he saw many people standing outside the door of the Myriad Pill Hall. Taking a closer look, there were Long Taiji, Tang Fengling, Huo Lingri, and the others who had left before. Tianyang has appeared. Tianyang discovered them, and they naturally discovered Tianyang as well. Tang Fengling cried out and rushed over. Long Taiji, Yu Jianshun, and the others were not to be outdone either. Nie Fengyun of the Scarlet Flame sect, Passerby B, and the Buddhists of the Western region had gloomy expressions. No one knew what they were thinking. My lord, you've come out. That demon king. Long Taiji was the first to run to Tianyang. He looked at Tianyang from head to toe and was shocked to find that he couldn't see through him. Although he couldn't see through Tianyang before, the current Tianyang seemed to have restrained himself. Not only was he using his powerful soul power to conceal himself, his entire aura didn't leak out in the slightest. If the Heavenly Sun's aura before could be described as a sharp, murderous blade, then the Heavenly Sun's aura right now was a treasured sword that had been sheathed. Compared to the former, everyone was more afraid of the latter. Long Taiji was no exception. After shivering violently, Long Taiji realized that he had lost his composure. He looked at Tianyang, stammering, hoping to get an answer. After all, that was a demon king, an existence comparable to an emperor of the human race. The ancestor of the martial arts Holy Land was only SOSO, or even slightly weaker. However, an existence of this level not only appeared in front of him, but also fought fiercely with the young man in front of him. After the fierce battle, the one who came out was the young man. Long Taiji and the others were already prepared to run, but unexpectedly, the one who came out was Tianyang. Dead, Tianyang said straightforwardly. Upon hearing that, Long Taiji was stunned. Tang Fengling, Yu Jianshun, and the others were completely stunned. The Demon King, an existence comparable to an emperor of the heaven-reaching realm, was dead? By the way, you'd better not touch the bloodfire wild heavenly armor in the main tomb. At this moment, Tianyang said faintly. Hearing that, everyone came to their senses and nodded. Suddenly, countless thoughts appeared in their minds. If the Demon King had been killed by the Sky He Gem and Blade Emperor, it wouldn't have been too surprising. However, for Tianyang to be able to activate the Demon King's trump card, he must have had a fierce battle before. Being able to survive a fierce battle with the Demon King, it was obvious that Tianyang's strength was extremely terrifying. Tianyang didn't know that his casual words to protect the tomb of the Sky He Gem and Blade Emperor had caused so many thoughts to appear in everyone's minds. However, Tianyang wasn't in the mood to care about that at this moment. He walked forward slowly and arrived at the Empyrean Palace, the Scarlet Flame sect, and the Buddhist disciples of the Western region. Looking at the many genius disciples in front of him, Tianyang smiled faintly. Chapter 644. Tangba, Nye Fengyun. When Tianyang mentioned the names of these two people, the expressions of the people from Nine Heavens Palace and Red Flame sect changed slightly. The people of Nine Heavens Palace were still fine. Previously, Tangba had indeed offended Heavenly Sun, and had offended Heavenly Sun to the extreme. Therefore, now that Heavenly Sun had settled everything and wanted to settle the old score, there was no problem. But what about Nye Fengyun? Nye Fengyun was only there to make up the numbers in the Red Flame sex team. He was pulled over because he was nearby. He had not spoken a word along the way. How do you offend Tianyang this time? Nye Fengyun. Hua Lingri suddenly turned his head and looked at Nye Fengyun with anger. Speak. How did you offend Tianyang? Nye Fengyun's face turned pale. He thought that with Hua Lingri's strength, even if he could not deal with Tianyang, he could at least protect him. However, looking at Hua Lingri's attitude, it seemed that he did not intend to protect him at all. As for Tangba, he was silently pushed out by the people from Nine Heavens Palace. They did not want to see their comrade killed, but they were even more unwilling to stop their savior from taking revenge. Revenge must be paid, and kindness must be repaid. Nye Fengyun was still hesitating, but at this moment, Tianyang stretched out his hand. A suction force burst out from his palm and sucked Nye Fengyun in front of him. Seeing this, Hua Lingri's expression changed slightly. Looking at Tianyang's merciless attitude, it seemed that Nye Fengyun had offended Tianyang more than a little. Lord Tianyang, may I ask what Nye Fengyun has done to offend you? Hua Lingri plucked up his courage and asked, looking at Tianyang, who was expressionless and calm. Although Nye Fengyun wasn't even a spirit king and was insignificant to them, Hua Lingri had to ask for the dignity of the Scarlet Flame sect. Otherwise, the reputation of the Red Flame sect was still unknown. As the young master of the Red Flame sect, he would definitely lose the support of the people. You almost killed me, Tianyang said lightly. His words were short, but it immediately shut Hua Lingri up. He took a few steps back and kept his mouth shut. The other people from the Red Flame sect all gasped and looked at Nye Fengyun as if he was a dead man. Killed him? Why the F***CK would they get involved? This was a death grudge. It was a blood feud. Unless Heavenly Sun was a saint, he would never give up on killing Nye Fengyun. Did anyone get involved in this matter? Sure, he just had to check if his neck could still be attached to that head. And Tianyang, Fengyun's, even his backer, the Scarlet Flame sect, a sacred land of martial arts, had admitted defeat in front of Tianyang. It was laughable that in the past he had ordered Tianyang around, acting all high and mighty because of the Scarlet Flame sect behind him. Now, even the Scarlet Flame sect had fallen in front of Tianyang. A strange flush flashed across Nye Fengyun's face. In the next moment, Nye Fengyun's pale face turned red. He disappeared from his spot. Even if you're still alive, killing a Demon King must have consumed a lot of energy. So if I die, you won't have an easy time. A cold light flashed across the sky. In the next moment, the sharp dagger was right in front of Tianyang's neck. Bang! A muffled sound rang out from Nye Fengyun's chest. In the next moment, Nye Fengyun's chest caved in and he was sent flying by Tianyang like a cannonball. Tianyang, on the other hand, had an indifferent expression as he looked at the dagger that had fallen to the ground. Dipped in poison? Or is it blood-corroding poison? No wonder you had the guts to attack, Tianyang said with a faint smile. Hearing this, everyone's faces changed. Blood-corroding poison? That horrifying poison that could kill an expert in the Spirit King realm. That damn bastard. He hid blood-corroding poison and didn't even tell me. Huo Lingri was furious. He looked at Nie Fengyun, who was almost hysterical, and said angrily, blood-corroding poison was extremely toxic. Even if it was only the size of a fingertip, it could enter a person's body through the pores. The poison also began to take effect. It entered the blood vessels and turned all the blood in the vessels into a highly toxic liquid. It was not an exaggeration to say that a person's life source was the heart. The heart was used to transport blood. If the blood was turned into a highly toxic liquid, how could the rest of the body be fine? Therefore, blood-corroding poison took effect very quickly. The poison not only corroded the internal organs, but also the bones. In the end, the person who was poisoned by blood-corroding poison would turn into a pool of pus and die in less than 15 minutes. Huo Lingri felt a lingering fear when he thought that there was someone around him who carried such a poison. Although he was the young master of the Red Flame sect, mastered the Green Lotus Fire, and had the battle strength of LV7C of Spirit Realm, he was only a Spirit King, and blood-corroding poison was almost invincible to those below the half-reaching Heaven Realm. Tianyang, die for me. Die. Nie Fengyun's figure flashed. He forced himself to endure the pain from his chest. He controlled the dagger with his genuine yuan and flew it toward Tianyang fiercely. Seeing this, Ling Yuhan and Long Taiji's expressions changed greatly at the same time. They had also heard of blood-corroding poison's notoriety. Blood-corroding poison is not bad, but you shouldn't use it like this. Dipping the blood-corroding poison on a dagger with such a small attacking area. The person who invented this poison must be furious. Tianyang smiled faintly. In the next moment, he spread out his genuine yuan and completely expelled Nie Fengyun's genuine yuan. That dagger suddenly lost all momentum and fell to the ground. However, Tianyang's expression did not change. His fingers moved rhythmically, and his soul power surged. That dagger suddenly stopped. You, what are you doing? Nie Fengyun saw this and trembled. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly. I'm giving you a taste of your own medicine. That's all. In the next moment, Tianyang pointed his finger. All the blood-corroding poison on the dagger immediately turned into countless poison beads and flew toward Nie Fengyun. No! Nie Fengyun's expression changed greatly. Just as he was about to escape, the wound on his chest just happened to explode at this moment. Pa pa pa. The sound wasn't loud, but it gave people goosebumps. This sound was like rain, but it represented the terror of blood-corroding poison. What shocked everyone was that the blood-corroding poison on the dagger turned into countless poison beads. Moreover, without exception, they all hit Nie Fengyun's body. No, Nie Fengyun's gaze was lifeless. He felt the poison in his body turn into blood. His pupils gradually dilated, and he lost his vitality. Then Tianyang picked up the dagger and casually threw it. Pucci. Chapter 645. After killing Nie Fengyun, Tianyang did not stay in the tomb of the Sky Hegemon Blade Emperor for too long. Instead, after dealing with Tang Ba and sending him back to hell, he took Ling Yuhan, Yu Jianshun, Long Taiji, A.O. Ling, and the others into the Heaven Pagoda and left this place. Sooner or later, I'll settle the score with you. Tang Fengling stood below, looking at the Heaven Pagoda that was getting further and further away. Only when the Heaven Pagoda had completely disappeared did she withdraw her gaze and involuntarily touch her chin. It was as if the touch from a few days ago had reappeared. That was the first time, and perhaps the only time, her chin was touched by someone of the opposite sex of the same age. Lord Sword Emperor, I really can't thank you enough this time. In the Heaven Pagoda, Long Taiji bowed to Tianyang and said, He had asked Tianyang to join the tomb of the Sky He Gem and Blade Emperor, which was the tomb of the Sky He Gem and Blade Emperor, in order to repay a part of the favor and let Tianyang remember the East Sea Dragon Palace. However, after this trip, the favor had not been repaid. He would remember it, but this favor was getting bigger and bigger. From the beginning, he had turned the tables on the East Sea Dragon Palace and helped them open the barrier. Moreover, he had fiercely suppressed the other 3 sacred lands in the Myriad Pill Hall. As for their gains, they would not have known if they had not seen it. Once they saw it, they were shocked. In order to unlock the seal on Enpa, the giant king, who was possessed by Enpa, had led them through the tomb of the Sky He Gem and Blade Emperor, except for the Bloodfire Wild Heavenly Armor. Moreover, they had discovered some secret places because of the giant king's ulterior motives and obtained many treasures. It could be said that their gains on this trip had also come from Tianyang. Otherwise, the giant king would have restrained them at the entrance. They would have either run away or the giant king would have died. How could there be such a good guide? As for the favor of slaying the demon and saving his life, Long Taiji did not dare to think about it. If this continued, the Dragon Prince would not be able to repay it even if he sold himself. It's fine. I also gained quite a lot. Tianyang waved his hand indifferently and smiled. The Demon King was not a creature that was easy to meet. Even when the demon race invaded 10,000 years ago, Tianyang had not seen many demon kings, let alone now. The only Devil King Tianyang had seen before was Flame Devil King Inhua, who was suppressed under the Great Void Divine Palace. At that time, he did not have the ability to kill her. However, after arriving at the earthly Emperor Small World, 2 demon kings had appeared in the Dragon Tomb of the Dragon Emperor and the Cenotaph of the Sky He Gem and Blade Emperor. How could Tianyang not be delighted? If demon kings continued to appear at this frequency, then perhaps the Sky Firmament Sword would be able to break through to the high-grade heaven rank in the earthly Emperor Small World. Of course, that was impossible. But we can't forget Sir's kindness in saving our lives. After the martial art conference is over, please be sure to visit our East Sea Dragon Palace. Long Taiji said seriously. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled. Didn't I promise you something before? I will definitely be a guest. At that time, just don't give me any seaweed. Hearing this, Long Taiji also smiled. Of course. Master Siyu, you're back? Did you find anything in the tomb of the LV3 Heavenly Completion Realm Expert? At this moment, a group of bald men in kasayas looked at Siyu, who was slowly walking over from afar, and suddenly became excited. The tomb of a LV3 Heavenly Completion Realm Expert. If it was outside, it would definitely be an existence that could set off a bloody storm. However, the tomb of a LV3 Heavenly Completion Realm Expert had appeared in the earthly Emperor Small World. Their senior brother Siyu was one of the strongest experts in the earthly Emperor Small World. Since he had gone to the treasure land, he must have gained something. Gained something? Hearing this, Siyu raised his head and looked at his junior brother in front of him. He smiled bitterly and shook his head. What gain? It's good enough that I didn't get beheaded. Hearing this, the group of bald men was dumbfounded. This Tianyang really doesn't know what's good for him. In the 9 Heaven Palaces camp, Passerby B slammed the table and said fiercely, "What kind of person is our Saintess? It's an honor for our Saintess to talk to him." In the end, not only did this Tianyang refuse to hand over the treasure he obtained from the Sky He Gem and Blade Emperor's tomb, he didn't even say a word. How can our 9 Heaven Palace tolerate such an impudent person? Passerby B said. Hearing this, the entire camp fell silent. Then, everyone stood up at the same time and moved to the other side. Passerby B was still speaking passionately. In the past, it could be traced back to the predecessor of the 9 Heaven Palace in the ancient times. In the future, it could be said that the Saintess had become an emperor. In the present, it could be said that the 9 Heaven Palace was extremely awesome as a martial arts holy land. After speaking for 4,000 to 5,000 words, the main idea was that our 9 Heaven Palace was so awesome, and this Tianyang actually dared to not give us face? Men, chop him up. However, When he finished speaking, he realized that there was no one in front of him or beside him. Where is he? Passerby B turned his head and saw that on the other side of the table, a group of people was squeezed together at the furthest end from him. Are you an idiot? If you're so good, why don't you do it? Passerby B withered. Compared to when Tianyong had won the first place, Tianyong had entered and exited the tomb of a Heaven Ascension stage LV3 powerhouse as if there was no one there. His feat of suppressing geniuses like Hua Lingri and Tanyu with ease and killing the Demon King and saving the world spread like a hurricane throughout the entire earthly Emperor Small World. However, before this, there was a piece of news that spread like a storm. Most people were furious. Tianyong had actually flirted with their goddess, the saintess of the Nine Heaven Palace, Tang Fengling. What kind of nonsense is this? Tianyong rubbed his head and looked at Ling Yuhan, who was smiling in front of him. Let's not talk about the first few, but the last one, I call that flirting? That's called picking a fight, okay? Ling Yuhan said, go on. I'm listening. Forget it. Let's not dwell on why the last piece of news spread faster and more widely than the first few. I just want to know, Tianyong looked at the screen. Above the head of King Chi Yao, who had returned to first place, there were a few large golden words. Challenge, Sword King Tianyong. And above the head of Tianyong, who had already flown to the 67th place, there were 3 words, did not accept the challenge. Do I know this King Chi Yao? Why is he picking a fight with me all of a sudden? Tianyong said. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan's expression returned to normal. She also looked puzzled. I don't understand either, but the central region of the earthly Emperor Small World, the northern wilderness, with all the azurite crystals as the wager? Ling Yuhan was puzzled. Hearing this, Tianyong finally saw the wager. Instantly, he smiled. Chapter 646. In the northern wilderness. My lord, why did you suddenly declare war on King of Swords Tianyong? A woman with a snake tail slithered to the side of a man. She stuck out her snake tongue and asked in confusion. This person was the current 10th on the human ranking, Mei Shi. Hearing this, the man shook his head slightly. It's not sudden. I've already said before that I've already noticed Tianyong. According to the records, this person's age is at most 17 or 18 years old. However, he possesses such terrifying cultivation and strength. He's definitely stronger than the geniuses of the other martial Holy Lands. Having such a genius in the human clan is a huge threat to the rise of our demon clan. Therefore, we have to fight him once. Whether we're on friendly terms, neutral, or hostile terms, we have to be prepared. The man said. Meishi nodded when she heard this. Her heart was heavy. She did not expect that Tianyong's position in King Chi Yao's heart had already reached such a level. The martial arts conference had yet to truly begin. There were still many martial Holy Land geniuses who had yet to make a move. They already knew about this. However, knowing about it was one thing. How to deal with it was another matter altogether. Meishi clearly knew that in King Chi Yao's heart, those geniuses from martial Holy Lands were nothing in his eyes at all. Only the few people in the lead were worthy of his attention. Now, Tianyong, a young man from the third-rate Star Swordplay sect, was valued so highly by King Chi Yao. How could Meishi not be shocked? After all, even Hua Lingri, Tang Fengling, Tanyu, Long Taiji, and the others had never been treated like this by King Chi Yao. Rumors had spread that Tianyong's strength was not weaker than the geniuses at the front of the martial Holy Lands. In fact, he was even slightly stronger. However, this was only a rumor. Seeing was believing. Meishi did not really believe it. That was why she was so puzzled. Hurry up and make preparations. I estimate that he'll be here in a few days. King Chi Yao said indifferently. Hearing this, Meishi could only put aside the confusion and doubts in her heart and go make preparations. However, a thought was slowly rising in her heart. My lord, are you really going to fight? In midair inside the heavenly Yuan Tower, Long Taiji looked at Tianyong in confusion. We have a lot of azurite crystals. If my lord needs them, we can give them to you. Our East Sea Dragon Palace is participating in this martial arts conference just to be a bystander. We don't ask for any ranking. There's no harm in giving these heaven azure crystals to you. After all, compared to saving my life, these stones are merely worldly possessions. Long Taiji said with a hint of disdain in his tone. This contempt wasn't directed at Tianyang, but at King Qi Yao, who had issued a challenge to Tianyang. Others might not know Tianyang's strength, but how could he not know? Tianyang was able to slay even a demon king with his sword. Even with the help of the sky, he gem and blade sovereign. It still showed how powerful Tianyang was. How could such a powerful person be challenged by a mere King Qi Yao? Therefore, Long Taiji felt that Tianyang was wasting his time. Originally, anything is possible in the martial arts conference. Now that there's finally some fun, if I don't look for it, wouldn't it be a great loss? Tianyang smiled. Moreover, King Qi Yao was able to occupy the first place on the individual ranking board for such a long time. Only I can occasionally defeat him. This shows how extraordinary King Qi Yao is. King Qi Yao is the most powerful genius of the monster clan now, Tianyang said. Upon hearing this, Long Taiji didn't comment. He just pursed his lips. The monster clan was a powerful clan among the countless clans in Heaven Continent. Although it couldn't be compared to the human clan who ruled the world and the dragon clan who dominated a region, it was still an extremely powerful force. The monster clan was composed of demonic beasts that had transformed into human form or demonic beasts that had gained intelligence. Apart from strength, they were also respected by bloodline. In terms of strength, the monster clan was almost on par with Nine Heaven Palace, Scarlet Flame Sect, and other sacred grounds of martial arts. King Qi Yao was the current young lord of the monster clan. He possessed the Howling Sky Nine-Headed Hound bloodline, and his cultivation was at peak 6th level of Sea of Soul Realm. He was only a step away from 7th level of Sea of Soul Realm. His bloodline ability was also extraordinarily powerful. Just his human body alone was enough to defeat Tyrant Dragon King Hong Wei. If he released his original form, he might even be able to contend against Hua Lingri. However, even so, Long Taiji still didn't care. The Dragon Clan was also a kind of monster clan. However, because their strength was too powerful, they were automatically separated from the central region of the monster clan. However, the Dragon Clan's bloodline was the highest among the monster clan. Although King Qi Yao's Howling Sky Nine-Headed Hound bloodline was powerful, it was still far inferior to Long Taiji's rare true dragon bloodline. Bloodline suppression allowed Long Taiji to suppress King Qi Yao from the start. Naturally, he didn't hold back in his words. You have bloodline suppression, but I don't. My bloodline can be faked, but if I use bloodline suppression, then I'm at my wit's end. Tianyang shrugged his shoulders. He was clear about his own bloodline. It was an ordinary human bloodline with nothing special about it. Even if he obtained the divine dragon bloodline by cultivating the 9 refined dragon body, it was only a part of it. It might be useful against some demonic beasts, but against King Qi Yao's Howling Sky Nine-Headed Hound bloodline, the effect will be next to nothing. Of course, against the Dragon Clan, as long as it was lower than his own divine dragon bloodline, Tianyang would firmly suppress it. Perhaps. However, no matter how strong this King Qi Yao is, he's definitely not your excellency's opponent. Long Taiji said with a smile. Hearing this, everyone nodded, full of confidence. After all, no matter how strong King Qi Yao was, could he be stronger than the Demon King? We haven't even reached the northern wilderness, and King Qi Yao's people are already here to cause trouble. At this moment, Tianyang raised his eyebrows slightly, revealing a meaningful smile as he stood up. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. They also stood up and walked to the side of the heavenly Yuan Tower. They saw a small emerald green that rushing over from afar. In a few blinks of an eye, they could already see the appearance of a newcomer. The newcomer was a female. Her skin was slightly dark, and her green curly hair was draped behind her head. Her eyes were as bright as emeralds. Her upper body was almost naked, with only 2 palm-sized coverings in front of her chest. However, she had a slender waist and soft peaks, making one's lower abdomen involuntarily burn with lust. Tianyang and the others were not ordinary people. Naturally, They wouldn't have any reaction because of the newcomer's figure. However, their gazes were all focused on the newcomer's lower body. That snake tail, that was like a giant python. The newcomer's identity was on the verge of being revealed. 10th on the human ranking, Demon Clan, Charming Snake. Chapter 647. Seductive Snake? Tianyang raised his brows. Although he had never seen Seductive Snake before, he knew that she was King Qi Yao's follower. However, in the next moment, Seductive Snake's angry roar came from her throat. "Get out here!" A thunderous roar caused the entire Heaven Yuan Tower to vibrate. Even with the Heaven Yuan Tower as a barrier, the sharp sound made everyone's ears hurt. Tianyang's face instantly turned cold. "Sir, I'll go take a look." Before Tianyang could speak, Long Taiji walked out with a face full of anger. His dragon-like body instantly exploded with extreme speed. In the next moment, he was in front of Seductive Snake. The dragon might belonging to the Dragon Crown Prince was released. "Who are you? Why are you trespassing on my team?" Long Taiji looked at Seductive Snake and said coldly. The dragon might released caused Seductive Snake's face to turn pale. Her body, which was advancing at extreme speed, came to a sudden stop. She, Seductive Snake, had a superior bloodline among the Demon Clan. However, compared to the Dragon Clan, the difference was too great. In the entire younger generation of the Demon Clan, perhaps only King Qi Yao, who had the Howling Sky nine-headed hound, could remain unchanged in front of Long Taiji. "Who are you?" "I'm looking for Tianyang." "Not you." Although she was suppressed by the dragon might, Seductive Snake was still unyielding. However, behind this unyielding attitude, there was a hint of cowardice. Within the dragon might, there was not only the Dragon Clan bloodline that made her despair, but also the powerful cultivation of the 7th sea of Soul Realm. She, Seductive Snake, was only at the peak of the 5th sea of Soul Realm. If Long Taiji wanted to, he could kill her with a casual strike. "Me?" Hearing this, Long Taiji smiled faintly. "Sir Tianyang's #1 general, Dragon Crown Prince Long Taiji." "What?" Hearing this, Seductive Snake's expression changed. She looked at the proud Long Taiji in disbelief. Dragon Crown Prince Long Taiji, the strongest genius of this generation of the East Sea Dragon Palace. Furthermore, what did he say? He was Tianyang's #1 general. What nonsense is this guy spouting? Tianyang was speechless. What kind of setting was this Long Taiji adding to himself? Tianyang's #1 general? There was no one under Tianyang. Tianyang had always been a lone wolf. At most, he would bring 2 or 3 people with him. One of them was Ling Yuhan. These people were not his subordinates. Whether it was the Flying Sword or Yu Jianshun, they were all Tianyang's companions. Long Taiji, on the other hand, had directly degraded his own status. This guy, however, as the one who spoke, Long Taiji did not have any self-awareness in this aspect. Instead, he looked at the charming snake proudly, as if this was an identity that he should be proud of. Tianyang, what's the point of hiding behind the Dragon Prince? Didn't you want to duel my Lord Scarlet Demon King? Then you'll have to get through me first. Ordinary trash is not worthy of Lord Scarlet Demon King's attention. The charming snake forcefully ignored Long Taiji and shouted angrily at the Heaven Pagoda behind Long Taiji. Long Taiji, who was ignored, had an ugly expression. Just as he was about to make a move, Tianyang's voice was heard. "You're right." Tianyang chuckled and walked out of the Heaven Pagoda. He looked at the charming snake. No matter how enchanting and seductive the charming snake's body was, his expression did not change at all. His clear gaze was fixed on the charming snake's eyes. The charming snake also saw the slight arrogance in his eyes. Her coquettish face instantly turned abnormally ugly. "If that's the case, then I'll make my move." The charming snake snorted. In the next moment, her snake tail swayed and her body suddenly disappeared. She appeared in front of Tianyang. Superior Demon Clan bloodline, activate. In an instant, the charming snake's green pupils elongated and a seductive aura shot out. Her left hand also suddenly attacked. Thousand Intestines Snake. Superior Earth-class martial technique. The snake's shadow appeared one after another. True Yuan exploded, and the unique power of the demon clan's bloodline surged out. In the next moment, it was in front of Tianyang. How dare you? Long Taiji's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly turned around. The charming snake's speed was too fast. It was so fast that he could not react in time. By the time he roared, the charming snake's attack was already in front of Tianyang. The demon clan's bloodline power. It's indeed useful. However, you're not very good at using it. Tianyang's lips curled into a smile. He was not affected by the seductive aura at all. He reached out with his right hand and directly grabbed the left hand that had turned into a sharp blade. So what if you've reacted? Not only does my thousand-intestine snake have a powerful seductive aura, even my left hand is covered in poison. Seeing this, the charming snake laughed loudly. Once you're poisoned by my snake venom, you definitely won't be able to use any true yuan for a short period of time. At that time, how will you fight against King Qi Yao? The charming snake laughed loudly. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan, Yu Jianshun, Ao Ling, and Long Taiji's expressions became extremely gloomy. They never thought that the charming snake would use such a despicable method. The duel between Heavenly Sun and King Qi Yao was an open and honorable duel, but this charming snake actually used such a method before the duel. It was simply despicable to the extreme. Tianyang did not mind. His right hand, that was holding the charming snake's left hand, still did not let go. He only smiled faintly. Oh, is that so? A ray of light slowly flowed. Tianyang's right hand suddenly exerted force, almost crushing the bones of the charming snake's left hand. You still dare to exert force? This way, the snake venom will enter even faster. You're courting death. The charming snake laughed coldly. However, just as she finished speaking, her expression became one of disbelief. How is this possible? Why can't my snake venom enter your body? The charming snake screamed in disbelief. Her voice was a little distorted. Her snake venom was all-pervasive. There were many pores on her palm, so it was extremely easy for it to enter. However, that was only for ordinary people. For Tianyang, the charming snake felt as if she was facing an iron wall. The all-pervasive snake venom that was always successful actually lost its effect. That was natural. Tianyang had cultivated the divine dragon body. His body was already at his will. His pores opened and closed as he wished. It was comparable to the legendary flawless golden body. The charming snake's snake venom was strong. However, it was unable to enter Tianyang's body, let alone have any effect. Crack! The moment the charming snake's shocked words left her mouth, Tianyang laughed softly. His right hand suddenly exerted force. The bones of the charming snake's left hand instantly cracked and were crushed. The entire left arm turned into a pile of meat. Countless bone fragments pierced into the muscles, causing the charming snake's expression to change drastically. Seeing that I'm about to fight with King Qi Yao and you didn't kill me, I'll spare your life for now. Crippling your left arm is the price. However, if you still want to play any tricks, the demons in the earthly Emperor Small World can forget about living.